Right, I wasn't really prepared to do any channeling, but now here I am.
So what we wanted to do today, there's been a very long line of spirits following us around, myself and Mary, wanting to talk to us about all sorts of different things. And over the past probably now 6 months, we've been spending a lot of time doing that, actually talking to different spirits. And when I say different spirits, there's large groups, usually of a few million spirits at a time that we've been speaking with. And it's working out really well because we get to interact with quite a lot of spirits who've been locked up in dark places for a long time. And because they've been locked up in dark places for a long time, they also are often quite open to being reasoned with regard to working through why they are in that dark place. And they also often respond very well to being reasoned with and talked to. Now, we've had spirits from all sorts of backgrounds come as well. So some have been dead a long time, like when we say a long time, some have been quite a few thousand years. They've been locked in the hells of the spirit world. And for others, they've been only there for a few years. Like in the case when we were in Greece, there was some guys who came to us who had all died in motorcycle accidents in the last 50 years, for example. So we've had all these different types of varieties of spirits. But there are actually groups of spirits in the spirit world in quite a lot of darkness, but who are trying to keep other groups of spirits in darkness as well. Sort of, I suppose you could say they are sort of like spirit oppressors of other spirits who have passed. And what we've been trying to do too is talk to some of those groups. And some of those group discussions have been quite intense. And some of them haven't progressed at all. Like they'll have a discussion with us, and when they don't get what they want from the discussion, then they basically leave the discussion. In addition to that, we've been speaking with groups of spirits who have died en masse, usually in some kind of genocide or some kind of, right through the Catholic Inquisitions, right the way through to the Second World War, and even in some of the other spirits that will be coming along who are also still waiting to talk to us, have died in like the Stalinist purges and all of those kind of things as well. So we're getting to talk with large groups of spirits, and many of them are moving positively. And we're also finding by having these discussions that the influence they have on the earth is lessening, and that's also helping a lot of people who have had these spirits surrounding them in terms of loosening up their life a bit and helping them to work their way through their issues of their own life. So we're finding it's a really positive process. And so what we wanted to do is just show you what we've been doing, basically, with all of that kind of stuff. And we have placed a number of these channelings on the internet for you to listen to. So if you look on the Divine Truth website, you will actually find recently that we've been starting to post some channelings, live channelings on the internet. Recently we had 3 people channeling all at the same time, and I was discussing things with a group of 3 different men all at the same time. And so some of the channelings get a little confusing to listen to if you're not aware of who is what, unfortunately. And the reality is that if we had more mediums, we could actually channel groups of people who interact with each other at the same time quite easily as well. So there's a lot of very interesting things that we can do with channeling. And is there any other questions you guys have about channeling? I know I'm getting straight into it because I don't want to waste too much time talking about it, and instead I'd like to sort of show you. But is there
anything to mention in terms of the group in their development?
Yes. There are a few things to be concerned about for ourselves as a group when we're doing this. Is that these spirits, many of them have lived for a long time in quite harsh conditions in the spirit world. And when we treat them harshly on earth, there's not a high desire for them to stay in that environment and talk to us then. So if you could bear in mind your own emotions towards these spirits, some of you will have personal doubts that we're actually speaking with spirits. And some of you who maybe cannot see these spirits or whatever will definitely feel those personal doubts. If you can own those doubts rather than projecting them at the people who are channeling or at those spirits, that's far better than it is to say, oh, this is all crap, and just really push that whole attitude onto the people who are doing the mediumship. The people who are doing the mediumship have had lives where they know spirits exist and they've seen them and they can talk to them frequently, so they don't have any doubts about it. But one thing that we need to bear in mind is the personality of the medium does affect the group and how the discussion occurs. And if the medium can get away from themselves quite strongly, then you'll start feeling the personality more and more of the person who's channeling. Now, what's happening is that a group of celestial spirits have already chosen a group of spirits for us to talk to tonight based on your law of attraction. So in other words, these spirits have some similar emotions as to what you historically have had inside of you from your parents, and the spirits that are coming to speak with us tonight have been involved in the genocide in the Second World War, the Hitler genocide in the Second World War of the Jews. So these are Jewish people that have come who have been basically tortured or gassed to death in the Second World War, and there's a lot of different emotions they have, and you'll see there's primarily three groups of spirits that we want to talk to tonight. There's a group of spirits who are the males male Jews who've died in concentration camps. The second group is a group of females who have died in concentration camps who are actually angry with their men as well. And then there's a third group of children from the age of about 5 or 6 through to teenage years that are trapped in association with the other two groups. So that we would like to talk to. So we may get to talk to all three of those groups tonight, depending on what goes on. Is there any questions anybody has? Yep.
The only way you can channel it, another way you can channel?
In what do you mean?
Well, I think, what you said last week, allowing the spirit through this way. Is there any other way, like I'm sitting on the phone and all of a sudden I'm getting this information coming through?
Yeah, no, certainly.
I'm giving it. I'm just giving.
Yeah, channeling can happen very naturally, and the more naturally it occurs, oftentimes we're not even aware that we're channeling when we are actually channeling. So that's the reality. But that's something that Peter and Eloise have decided in their mediumship team group that they would like to talk about on a regular basis. Mary's been running mediumship team groups up near where we live, and there's about 50 or 60 people that come along to that group learning how to actually talk with spirits. And it can be like a constant communication if you want it to be. Not all people want it to be, of course, and also you've got to know which spirits you're speaking with. And unfortunately, a lot of the spirits masquerade as other spirits, so they falsify their identity and also what they talk about in order to get some other thing satisfied, unfortunately. And the key is to go through a process of actually clearing up your own emotions so that you're sensitive to the different types of emotions of spirits that are coming to you.
Yeah, I think one of the dangers that can happen now that we sort of start to become more aware of the spirit world and that there's often negative spirit influences upon us is that there can be a tendency to judge those spirits, to want to just get rid of them and project a lot of anger and hatred at them. And I feel that part of what Angelo sort of expressed earlier was about letting everyone have the experience of hearing from spirits who are in a darker condition themselves because of their life experience, and perhaps cultivating some compassion. What I've found through mediumship is that I grow a lot from speaking to my celestial guides, but also from understanding, especially in times past, understanding the negative influences that were upon me and why I was attracting them. And actually it's a very beautiful experience to assist people in darkness to get to some more light. But if we're judging and if we're projecting at those people, of course we can't help them. So for me, mediumship is very much about service, either giving the service of my celestial friends a voice on earth, because they have a lot more clarity than me, myself, in my current condition at the moment, but also giving the service to spirits in darkness, that they could know God, or that they could find some light. But really, to do that, we have to have a spirit of compassion within us and empathy. So,
So the key is to, if you can just imagine yourself in the position, for the spirits who come tonight, if you can imagine yourself in the position where you were one of those persons who were taken or ripped from your home under gunpoint generally, thrown in a transportation train, taken straight to a concentration camp, and some of these ones were taken straight to the concentration camp, put into gas chamber and gassed, and then you passed over into the spirit world, just what you would feel in that entire process. If you can allow yourself to sort of stay compassionate in that place of what, the kind of feelings that would be involved, then it's going to help these people be able to express their feelings quite freely with you, and that will actually help. If we can stay open to that emotionally, then that actually helps them quite. It's like any person who is open to hearing your story, from an emotional perspective, open to hearing your story, is going to benefit from. Is going to benefit the other person who needs some help with regard to the story and what's gone on with the story, and that's the case with these particular spirits. So if you can remember that, that'd be fantastic. And if you have doubts through it all, if you could just own them yourself rather than projecting them at the people who are doing the mediumship, because it just clouds they're feeling your emotion as well as their emotion, so it's a bit hard then to accurately channel when you're feeling whole groups of emotions. So that's what, if you can just bear that in mind, that'd be great. Okay, I think we might as well get started, shall we? And what I'm going to do is not focus on you as an audience, so I'll be focused very much on the people I'm talking to. So if you can't see what's going on, you might want to move around a bit so that you can see, but if you can just keep the noise down so that we can just stay just really connected with the persons involved. And we are recording it, so there's a good chance the recording will be placed on the internet so you can listen to it again. So if you do miss out on something that you feel you'd like to know about, then don't be afraid to download that and listen to it again. But yeah, don't be afraid to come down a little if you want to with your chair or whatever, and if you need to be a bit closer. Obviously, too close to the fire might be a bit. Yeah. And so we're happy to have people just right the way around here if you want to. So if everyone can get just settled, if you want to get to the place where, that's great.
Are you okay with me in the middle?
That should be fine. Yeah, I would prefer if you would. If it's okay, yeah, I prefer if you would.
Here, yes.
I'll work with the first one.
Yes, I think that's better too.
You just go like that.
Yeah. I think because also I'll be channeling people
who are angry with. Yeah. The reality is that Mary will be channeling people who are angry with the people that Peter are channeling. So I'm picking in the middle. So
we'll just see how they think.
My name's Ulrich.
Ulrich? Welcome, Ulrich.
Thank you. I've waited for this moment for a long time.
How long have you been waiting?
In this place?
Yeah.
Since 1941.
1941, yeah.
You're like one of my grand old clocks. So beautiful on the outside. Majestic inside.
Yeah. So you were a clockmaker?
I made a lot of clocks.
Yeah, yeah. And where did you live when you were on Earth?
I spent my childhood in Germany.
Yeah.
And then I moved to Austria when I was 14.
Yeah.
My father said Germany no good.
Mm-hmm.
And I loved Austria.
You loved Austria?
Austria, a pretty place.
Yeah.
There was just myself, my wife. We weren't a big Jewish family.
Yeah, yeah.
But we loved a lot.
So what year did you move to Austria from Germany?
Well, it was 1914.
Right. So during the First World War?
During the First World War.
Yeah.
And we never thought there would be a second.
No. A lot of people in the world never thought there would be a second. Mm-hmm.
My father said never trust anybody. But we trusted the people we were with.
Yeah, yeah.
We were part of a community.
And eventually the community turned on you.
They said we were Jew, we must go.
Yeah, yeah.
This was my home.
Yeah.
Our little children.
Yeah. How many children did you have?
I had 6.
Yeah.
But there was big age difference.
Yeah, yeah.
And there was 2 with us when we were taken.
Right. So the rest had left home by
A
then.
little girl and a little boy.
Right. Yeah. How old were they?
The little boy was 6.
Yeah, yeah.
And my girl was 14.
14. Yeah.
I did horrible things to her.
Oh, yeah.
Horrible things.
Have you seen her since?
Not her.
No.
No, I don't think I could look her in the eye anymore.
Right, right.
Horrible things.
Yeah. We'll talk about some of that in a minute. Yeah.
So they put me on a train.
Yeah.
We were squashed in with the animals. No animal would have experienced what we experienced.
Yeah. You were squashed into the trains. Yeah.
There was 84 of us in one carriage.
Yeah.
We were stacked on top of each other.
Yeah.
The smell. You would never see the smell like it.
Yeah. Yeah.
My foot, I had no shoe. It was cold.
Yeah.
And cold and smell
Yeah.
does something.
Dehumanizes people, doesn't it?
When you're cold and you got smell.
Yeah.
So our train was broken down for 4 hours.
Yeah.
And they refused to open the carriage.
Yeah.
So there was no air.
Yeah.
No air at all in the train.
Yeah. Yeah.
4 died in that 4 hours.
Yeah. Yeah.
I saw it in front of my eyes.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I thought that was bad.
Yeah.
That was only the beginning.
Yeah.
Only the beginning.
Yeah.
When they opened the carriage, it'd be dark for so long.
Yeah.
And I just pushed so loud.
Yeah.
Stuck on top of each other.
Yeah.
They looked at me and they said, "You're no good. Your hands are too soft.
Yeah.
You go that way."
Right. So they sorted people out.
They sorted us
Yeah.
500 meters from the train.
Yeah. Your hands were A bit arthritic?
Yes, but I was 46 at the time.
Yeah.
So I was deemed old.
Yeah.
And I'm only a little man.
Yeah.
So they wanted labourers.
They wanted stronger men.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes, but I looked at my daughter.
Yeah.
And all the children, there were female, about 12 others,
Yeah.
all went to one way.
They all were sorted one direction.
Yes.
Yeah. Mm.
And then with the boys, some they allowed us to keep,
Yeah.
and some they sent another way.
Right.
We heard that they were going to make them into their own soldiers,
Yeah.
to kill us.
Yeah.
Our old children
Yeah.
were going to become soldiers.
Yeah.
My little boy, Joseph, I think he knew. I think he saw it in my eyes.
Did you find out what happened after you passed to the children?
I know what happened to my boy.
Yeah.
I told him to run and not look back.
Yeah.
I told him to run with me.
Yeah.
This place I knew was hell,
Mm.
and I told him to run.
Yeah.
It was only a little boy. Little boy. And Joseph shot in the back.
Yeah.
But because we were Jews, they didn't move him. They left him there for 2 weeks in the snow.
Yeah.
My little boy
Yeah. Yeah.
didn't even move him.
Mm.
No. Then they crammed us in, mostly the men.
Yeah.
I used to use my fingernail to mark on my bunker how many nights I was there.
Yeah.
The last one was 14.
So they stored you there for 14 days.
And then it was a relief. I knew I was going to die.
Yeah.
So after the 20 days beforehand, I was ready.
Yeah.
What I wasn't ready for was when I went. I was always told that God would be there waiting for me.
Mm-hmm.
There's no God here.
No.
There's no God where we all are. We're all here together.
Yeah.
My wife looks at me as if I'm the devil. She won't even talk to me.
So she hates you.
We used to love each other so much.
Yeah. Can I, before we talk about where you are, would you like to describe what your beliefs were before you passed? What did you believe?
Well, I was a devoted Jew.
Yeah.
We used to pray before every meal.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
I kept everything. I never missed anything.
Yeah. And can you see, though, that there wasn't a very strong idea of what would happen when you passed in your faith?
Well, our faith was that we would be looked after.
But there was no sort of definite idea about how that would happen.
Well, nobody talked about it, but we...
Yeah. I understand. We can talk more about this in a minute. So when you passed, initially when you passed, you knew you'd passed.
Yes, well, many of us passed together.
Of course, yeah.
Mm.
And where did you stay on Earth looking at what was happening on Earth for very long, or did you pass?
Well, we helped everybody as they died.
Right. Yep.
Because when they were dying, we were there for them.
Yeah. Yeah.
So we would get them ready.
Yeah.
So that before they got to the chamber,
they had sort of a calmness in them that they were going to die.
We tried to make it as painless as possible.
Yeah.
In 1941 I died.
Yeah.
We're still doing this in 1944.
Yeah. Yeah. And how many people are with you now? How many people are with you now?
Well, it's not just from World War II.
No, I know.
But there's over 4 million
Yeah.
here.
Yeah. Yeah. And all of you are Jews?
All of us are Jews.
Yeah.
It feels like we're being deemed for some reason. What did we do wrong?
Yeah, that's what it feels like.
What did we do so wrong? I just made clocks.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, I don't feel you've done anything wrong. So what we're going to talk about is why you're still where you are.
Well, a while ago, I started to pray that there must be another place.
Yeah.
And that is when Angela Rimbardi came and saw me.
Yeah.
And said that I would be able to speak to you.
Yeah. Yeah. So a few months ago now, you started to ask for help. Is that what happened?
Yes, I could. I stuck out there in this place.
Yeah, yeah. Can I ask why you didn't ask for help sooner? Do you know why you didn't ask for help
Well,
sooner?
I thought I was asking for help all the time.
Right. Yeah.
I was asking for God to look after us and show His face.
Yeah. Yeah.
No God, no face.
Yeah. Can you see that you were a bit angry too at that time? Yeah.
All our people have been killed. We never killed anybody.
Yeah. Yeah, I understand.
Nobody. I never killed anything. I couldn't even kill a fly.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
How could this be so?
Yeah. It's hard, isn't it? So what I'd like to do is talk to you about how to make your life better now, and it means going through some feelings like that you have, and being true about the feelings that you have. But can I first say to you that there is a God, all right, and there is a way to connect to God, and there is also a way to get from where you currently are to a new place.
That is hard to imagine where I am.
I know. Yeah.
Very hard to imagine that all those books I read are true when I'm in this place.
You see, the reason why I asked you about what you believed before you passed over is that it's often what we believe before we pass over that determines what we do after we pass over.
Well, we believed God would be here waiting for us.
Yeah, yeah. And you believed you would see God.
Of course.
Yeah. Well, and the first thing is that you won't see God.
I never see God.
No, you won't.
Then how does He exist if we can't see Him?
Well, let me finish the sentence. You won't see God with your eyes. There's another way that you can feel God rather than seeing God with your eyes.
Oh, yes.
So at the moment, what you're trying to do is you wanted to see God with your eyes, and then when you notice there is no God, when you look for God with your eyes, you then started feeling that there is no God. Isn't that right?
Well, I haven't seen any God.
Yeah. And then
No, none of us have seen God.
Yeah, and we want to remedy that. So we want you to understand that we can help you feel God, and we can show you how to do that.
Is that like feeling a pain?
Well, there's a combination of things that need to happen, but we'll talk about that as we go along with the discussion. All right? So, but the first thing we want to do is just feel like what I'd like to do is explain to you a little bit about how the spirit world works. in other words, explain to you.
There's other places?
There's other places, yes. Yeah, besides where you are. Because if you notice, you look around where you are at the moment, you notice that it's mostly the people who have also been harmed in the same way you have been harmed.
Yes.
Yeah. And
some from a long, long, long time ago.
that's right, yeah. Some for thousands of years ago.
That's right.
Yes. And they're all Jewish.
Yes.
And often what's been happening with you once you've passed is you've been also influencing the new the Jews that are still on earth.
Well, we try to look after them so it never happens again.
Exactly. You're trying to protect them.
Of course.
So you're helping them take actions,
Definitely.
warlike actions.
Oh, no. I don't like war.
You don't like war? No.
But I do like to look after my people.
You want them to protect themselves?
Yes.
Yes. And so you help the people on earth who are Jews to protect themselves against being oppressed.
We warn them when things do not look good.
Right. Yeah.
The women are the ones.
Yeah, we'll talk to the women in a minute. Yeah. So there is a sort of a degree of influence still on the earth, isn't there? That where you tell the Jews that they're going to be oppressed and.
We don't want them coming to this place.
No, I understand that. I understand that. So what I can do is explain to you what's going on right now for you. Right?
That would be very helpful for us all.
Yeah. Now, there's two main emotions just two, that control a lot of our behaviour and interactions. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
The first main emotion is anger.
Anger.
So that's sometimes you've felt that anger after you've passed. Remember? So you particularly you feel the injustice of what's happened and so forth.
Yes, we know that.
Yeah, know that emotion. And then the second main emotion is fear, where you feel terrified. Now these two main emotions determine often what happens after you pass. Does that make sense? If a person has a lot of anger or rage, then they often go into very dark places, much darker than where you currently are, even in the spirit world.
It could be worse than it.
It can be worse than where you are, yes. Yeah. And then the people who are where there's a lot of fear often go to where you are currently. But what happens is there's what's called a law of attraction, where if there's a group of Jews that have done together and they still are attracted to each other, then they finish up formulating a group in the spirit world.
So all the Nazis are together?
Often that's the case, yeah. In fact, there is Nazis in the spirit world altogether, yes. That's correct.
Burning?
Well, you're hoping that, but the reality is that they are in a very much darker location where there's no light.
And they can't hurt anybody anymore?
Well, unfortunately, they can, but we can explain some of that. But they can't hurt you anymore because you're in a very different place to where they are.
We haven't seen any Nazis.
No. And the reality is some of those Nazis are hurting people on earth still through their influence, similar to the way that you influence them. Does that make sense? That you influence people on earth and these other spirits are doing the same thing. But if you can just picture it like, at the moment, if you can picture it like layers, and the layers depend on the condition of love inside of the person. So when we're afraid, we often don't feel much love for people.
How could I love them?
I'm not suggesting anything that you need to do at the moment. I'm just explaining to you how the spirit world works. Does that make sense?
Okay.
So the spirit world works in a way that there's layers, if you like, of love. And the condition of love that's in our soul, what we feel personally in terms of love, is that what attracts us to a certain location in the spirit world. Does that make sense to you?
Okay.
So because the group of you are all very afraid still, you're all attracted to the same location.
That's how we all got here.
That's how you got where you are now. Because you all have the same level of fear and the same type of fear. And this is why there's Jews from many thousands of years ago even still where you are.
So it's those Jews that put us here?
No, it's not those Jews that put you here. It's because all of you have the same fear. And it's the same fear that's inside of each of you individually that puts you in this location. Does that make sense?
Not really.
Not really?
No.
And
My mind.
that's okay. That's okay. I can explain more. So
Helpful.
the level of fear and the type of fear that you each have is very similar to each other.
Yes, I can understand.
You can understand that, can't you? And that's what attracts you together as a group. That's why you're all together.
Because we've all had that.
Because you've all had a very similar experience. Yeah, and also because of the guilt about the women and the children and what happened to the women and children. Can you see all of you have that guilt too, don't you? Yeah?
They just won't even look at us.
No, but that, we can talk about that. But if you can understand at the moment, there's these common emotions inside each of you that keep you where you are. And also, because of your guilt, you have avoided asking for help. Can you see that?
Yes, I can understand.
You're almost trying to punish yourself for what happened to your women and your children. Can you see that? Yeah, you feel it's your fault. And so when there have been some bright spirits who have come to visit you. Have you ever seen those come to visit you?
Yes, you know, it's the first I've seen for many years.
But early days, when soon after you passed, there was bright spirits who came to visit you, weren't there?
Yes, there was.
And you didn't want to accept their help because you felt so guilty. Do you remember?
I didn't understand
what they were saying?
No, it didn't make any sense.
No, but there was also a feeling in you that you didn't deserve their help.
Okay.
Can you see that?
Yes, it could be possible.
Will you think back at the time when you first arrived?
Yes, it was not very shortly after I arrived.
That's correct. And you remember how much feeling of guilt you felt? Like you felt really bad that you didn't protect your family? Yeah? And because of this feeling of guilt, you then felt you didn't deserve any assistance. Can you see that?
We all had that.
Yeah, and then you so every time one of these bright spirits came to assist you, because they can help you, but every time they came, you all feel terrible about what you've done, because you feel you didn't protect your families and didn't protect your women and your children.
But that is very true. They all got killed.
I understand that. But see, I have a very different viewpoint to it than you do. My viewpoint is that the only way that you could have protected your wife and your children is to then kill somebody else.
Oh, no, I got killed.
Exactly. Yeah. And the reality is that the people who harmed your wife and your children, right, were the persons to blame for their actions.
They didn't even feel when they did it.
I agree.
How could a human do such a thing?
I agree. I agree. And this is so in a way I feel that it is good that you did not harm another person, no matter what the circumstances, even though you feel guilty about it. Does that make sense? And many of you now feel like you should have taken action.
Yes, we all have regrets.
Yeah, that's right.
We never listened to someone.
And it's your feeling that you have regret that keeps you locked up in the same place in the spirit world.
So we can get out of this hellhole.
Yeah, you can get out of the hellhole you're in. Yes. But it's about just grieving the fact that it happened rather than blaming yourself that it happened. You see, at the moment what you're doing is you're blaming yourself that your wife and your children got harmed.
Yes.
Instead of understanding that actually it wasn't anything to do with your lack of action, it was everything to do with the people who were wanting to harm you
what
their
did
choices.
we do to deserve such a thing?
Well, I don't feel you did deserve anything.
So how could I end up in such a place?
Well, you're ending up in such a place because you're holding on to your guilt.
So guilt is just the guilt?
That's just the guilt, yeah. Does that make sense to you?
How do we all get rid of guilt?
That's a very good question, how to get rid of guilt. How to get rid of guilt is all about grieving the event rather than blaming yourself for the event.
Can you repeat it to everybody?
So it's about crying about what actually happened to you and your family rather than blaming yourself for what happened to yourself and your family.
So when I cried in the past, I was crying in blame for myself, self-pity?
Yes, or even angry with yourselves. And all of you are quite angry with yourselves, yes?
Yes, yes.
Because you feel that you should have taken a different action.
And that's why we're still here.
And that's why you're still in this current location. You don't need to be angry with yourself. You just need to grieve what actually happened. Does that make sense to you? Now, we can prove this to you if you want while we're talking. Does that sound all right with you?
We've made that song.
Yeah. So we'll do that, shall we?
That would be very helpful.
Well, remember I said to you that there is a God. You never said that? Okay. And I also said to you that instead of blaming yourself for actions other people took against your family, you need to allow yourself to feel that you weren't to blame, right? And just grieve what happens to your family. Right? Now, if we combine those two things together, what we can do is we can connect to God, and God through that connection can show you what is the truth about your situation, and that you don't need to hold on to your guilt.
You said we can't see God.
That's correct.
It's just going to be a feeling
It's
in our heart?
going to be a feeling, yeah, that's right. Okay?
And what would that feeling feel like?
Well, let's experiment and find out, shall we? Does that sound all right? So if you can all just for a moment, and some of you don't believe there's a God now, do you?
None of us believe in God.
Not really.
We've all been here too long.
Yeah.
If God was there for us, we would see Him.
Yeah. And what I'm suggesting to you is it's your own self-punishing emotions towards yourself that prevented you from feeling God. That's what I'm suggesting. And what we'll do is we'll experiment with that a little bit so we can prove that to you or not. Does that sound all right?
That would be very helpful.
So if you can just imagine for a moment, if there is a God, should we, if you can just say this, in fact, after myself. If there is a God, and it has to be a feeling, you see, if there is a God, would you please give us some of your love?
Please give us some love.
Yeah.
Do we deserve such a thing?
Yes, you do. Yes, you do.
We can have this love.
Yes, you can. Yeah.
For what we did.
Yeah, well, this is something that I want to explain to you later, is that you didn't do anything wrong.
This is God's love.
This is God's love. Can you feel that feeling?
It's very nice. I can feel my hands again.
Yeah.
I have not felt my hands for such a long time.
Yeah.
We can have this all the time.
You can have this all the time, and it's also proof that God exists, isn't it?
So we don't have to see God, we just feel God.
That's correct. Now, if you feel God enough, you will eventually come to see God.
Can you say that to us all again?
Well, this love that's entered you just a little bit now,
Yes.
you can long for this love any time you want.
Anytime.
Any time you want, that's correct.
Oh,
Okay?
yes.
And the more you long for it and the more that you receive, the closer you'll get to God.
So we no longer be in this place.
You'll no longer be in the place you're in.
Where do we go?
Well, just hang on a second. Firstly, have a look at your bodies. What have you noticed?
We're excited. Look at my fingers.
You can see your bodies better, yes?
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. So you notice just receiving God's love changes you.
Yeah.
You notice that?
Yes.
Yeah. And do you know that guilt feeling that you were having just before? What have you noticed about that?
Well, it was very different.
You don't feel as guilty anymore, do you? No.
So where did it go?
Well, that's the beauty with God's love, is that as you receive God's love, the guilt feeling, anything that's disharmonious with God's love, and guilt is an emotion that's disharmonious with God's love, leaves you.
God takes it away.
God takes it away. Because the reality is you haven't done anything wrong. Now, if you had done something wrong, the guilt emotion would increase as you receive God's love.
And this is what happens to the Nazis.
This is what happens to people who have done things wrong. Yeah. So the people who have done things wrong, as they receive God's love, they feel more guilt inside of them that they've definitely done things wrong, and then they have to cry about that. Does that make sense? But the people who are not guilty and really are just blaming themselves, as they receive God's love, there's a less of a feeling of guilt inside
So
of
the
them.
Nazis can go to the same place that we go?
They could do if they allowed themselves to connect to God's love and also feel the guilt about what they've done wrong.
And we no longer would hate them.
That's correct. And they would no longer hate you either.
That's all possible.
That's all possible, yes. And in fact, there are some Nazis that have done that.
Really?
Yes, yeah. And later on I can introduce some to you if you want. But they're no longer Nazis, of course.
So what happens to the children and women?
Well, let me talk to you a little bit further first, and then we will help the children and the women. How does that sound?
They will talk to us?
Well, I hope so. I feel they will. So we'll just see how we go. But it means dealing with some emotion for them, so it really is up to them as to what they do. You can't sort of force them to do something. You just need to just observe, watch what happens when we talk to them. Does that make sense?
We can watch that?
Yes, you'll be able to watch that, I feel. But you want to have some distance, so you give them the space to feel what they feel.
Yes.
Does that make sense?
We know about the distance.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. But I would just like to explain a little more to you, if I can. Now that you're in a different condition in your body, that means that there's more love in you now. Does that make sense?
Well, I feel a little lighter and
You feel
a lot
lighter.
younger.
Yes, that's correct. So, and the more love you receive, the younger you will feel, and the lighter you will feel. The more love you receive, and it's just a matter of longing for that love to enter you. And any time that you long for the love to enter you and nothing happens, then you know there's something inside of you stopping the love from entering you.
So what would stop the love entering?
Well, if you are harbouring anger towards somebody, then the love won't be able to enter you.
So what do we do with the Nazis?
Well, there you have to finish up forgiving them eventually.
We forgive them because of God's love.
Exactly. Yeah. Yeah.
Well, that does feel fair.
Yeah.
And who are these other people?
Which other people?
Well, there's, I can't really look at them.
They're bright.
Yes, they're quite... Oh, yes, I can't even see their faces yet.
Yep. Okay, well what we'll do is we'll ask them to tone down their brightness so that you can see them.
Yes.
And do you notice anything about them?
Oh, are they Jews?
Yes. Do you notice some of them?
I feel them more than I know them.
Yeah. Well, yeah. So can you remember some of them? Because there's some there that you can remember.
There's my old school teacher.
Okay. Yeah.
How did he get there?
Well, he's learnt about God's love, and he's learnt to receive God's love just like I showed you.
So he can teach us how to do that. He's still a school teacher.
In a way, he's still a school teacher.
Oh.
Yeah.
That was a long time ago.
Yeah. But he's learnt about God's love, and he's learnt a lot of other things too that he can teach you.
So we just listen to our school teacher.
Exactly. Yeah. And how do you feel as a group about listening to some people who can show you more about how to progress?
After being in this place, I was ready to listen to anybody.
Yeah, I understand.
Anybody.
Can I give you just one secret about the spirit world?
Oh, you would like a secret?
Yeah. Don't listen to anybody who's in a darker place than you are.
That's a secret?
Yeah, that's a secret.
So just follow the bright one.
That's right. The brighter ones they know more about.
Haven't we heard that story before?
I don't know, because you've probably followed me around a bit, so you've probably heard me say that a few times to other groups, yes?
Okay.
Yeah.
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 You're a nice man.
Thank you. Yeah, I feel you're a nice man too, actually.
Can you do something with our lady?
We will try, but again, the key thing is to not have too much expectation. We just try, okay?
And what about the little one?
The same goes. We will also help them. Yeah, it will help them. And in fact, if you listen to your friend, your school teacher friend, he'll be able to show you how you can help them as well. Does that make sense?
Oh, thank you.
Yeah. But one thing that you will need to do is you will need to stop punishing yourselves.
No more punishment.
Of yourself.
No more guilt.
Yeah. Stop punishing yourself for what other people did.
We Jews are quick learners, you know. Can you repeat it for everybody?
Yeah. To no longer punish yourself for what other people did. Does that make sense? You see,
It's going to be hard for a little while.
It may be, yes, it may be, because you see the results of what other people did to your families and your children, and then there's a temptation to want to punish yourself, you see.
So when I get back into this place, just now, what do I do to go back?
All you need to do is stop punishing yourself and just cry that it happened. Does that make sense?
Yes, we can do that.
Yeah. So let yourself just grieve. That's it. That these bad things happen to your family, rather than blame yourself that they happen. That's right. Because up till now, what you've been doing is you've been blaming yourself, and that's what's been keeping you in a dark place.
Yes, I see the difference.
Can you look around you now? Can you see the place you live in is a brighter place already?
Yes.
Yeah. And these spirits that are with you, they want to take you to the place where you can live now.
There's nearly more of them than there is of us.
That's correct, yeah. There's quite a few million of them, yes. Yeah. And they want to give you individual help as well.
Oh.
Okay, so you'll be able to have friends.
Talk to my wife.
Yep, and once we can talk with your wife and talk to the children, we hope to be able to help them in the same way. Does that make sense to you?
Thank you.
It's my pleasure. It's my pleasure.
So we just go to them now?
Go to them now and listen to your school teacher friend, and he'll talk to you a lot about God. There's some beliefs that you have that you'll have to give away because they are false beliefs, and there's other beliefs that you have come to you that are more true beliefs. And as you develop that, you'll find you'll be able to progress more and more.
It's in my heart again.
Yeah.
Thank you.
It's my pleasure.
Thank you. You're a great man.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you.
And you ladies are upset about that.
Gusto. Manipulate. Sorry, I'm just, whoa. I really wanted to bust in on that.
Yeah. You've been wanting to say to me that doesn't sound fair or right. But you've been very angry, so you're allowed to express your anger. So.
Disgusting men. He's so weak. Snivelling.
Yeah.
And this manipulation now of our men is taken from us.
How have I taken them from you? You've been wanting to punish them all of your life after you've passed?
They're weak.
What were they meant to do? What should they have done?
Stand up. Protect us.
Yeah. And is this why you're angry? Because you feel they didn't protect you?
Yes. The entire Jewish race. They have abandoned us. They're traitors.
You're referring specifically to the men?
Yes. And they're snivelling, passive. We are the strength. And now, through this discussion that we had to observe here, you encourage them in weakness. You send them further into disarray. We are the ones who hold us together.
So you feel very angry with me for stating what I stated?
Yes. You are weak also.
In what way am I weak?
This way you speak and act and softness and kindness, and this is not the way of the world.
I agree that it's not the way of the world. That is the way of the world brought you happiness?
Happiness is not a consideration.
I do feel it is a consideration.
And what would you know? We were slaughtered. And generations we have been slaughtered.
Well, I was slaughtered too.
Just like the men, you snivel about it.
Do I? You have a look at my death, did it seem like I was snivelled about?
I do not care to look.
Isn't that not because you don't want to see the truth? You're accusing me of something and then you don't want to see the truth of what actually happened. Does that seem fair to you?
There is no fairness. We must be strong.
I understand why you feel you must be strong. I do understand that.
And this wallowing in the pain and the loss, it doesn't take anyone anywhere.
So what's your alternative?
We must fight.
Yeah.
We must band together, we must fight, we must be strong.
So you're the persons who are getting the Jewish nation to go into a warlike mode. You want them
We should never be attacked or downtrodden again.
You want them to attack first?
If that is necessary.
Yeah. Okay. Well, can I... go on, you say what you want.
The discussion, it disturbs us. It stirs things in us that are not good to be stirred.
Your grief, for example. You've maintained a steely facade in order to prevent yourself from feeling your grief about what happened.
What benefit is there in grief? We would all just grieve and grieve and grieve for generations.
I don't agree, actually. If you can look at your surroundings right now, what do you notice? So a lot of times you ignore looking at your surroundings, right?
We focus where the focus should be.
You're focusing on the earth, I know that. But let's look at your surroundings for a moment. Your real surroundings, where you're currently living. What do you notice?
Yes. What, you wish to humiliate us further?
No, I don't.
We live in filth.
Yeah. I don't wish to...
And we do not deserve it.
I agree, you don't deserve it. However, there is an emotion that's keeping you where you are. And it's this rage that you have that's keeping you where you are. And what I'm suggesting to you is if you allow yourself to feel the grief instead of feeling the rage.
We were women. We were women.
Yeah.
Women of class and substance.
Mm-hmm.
And we were reduced to animals.
Mm-hmm.
And our men did nothing.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I understand that's what occurred. But what I'm suggesting is that your rage about it is what is keeping you in your current location. Now, I can actually show you a woman who had exactly the same thing happen to her as what has happened to you, and yet she is in a very, very different condition. And I'm suggesting to you that you don't have to stay in the current conditions of squalor that you live in. And you don't have to focus all of your attention on the earth like you currently do. And this woman who I can bring to you will be proof that you don't have to. And you can become into the same condition as what she is currently in. But it requires examining it. Does that make sense?
Do not make spaces. Do not make spaces.
There's a whole group of women who want to help you get out of the current conditions of squalor. They want to help you get from where you currently are and out of the pain that you currently have into a new condition. But for this to occur, we need to get beyond the rage that you feel and into the fear and grief that you have, and we can actually ask God to help you through this process. And there is a God who can help you through this process. But God can't help you through this process while you maintain your rage. So it really gets down to a decision inside of yourself as to whether you're going to maintain your rage or not. That's what is keeping you in your current condition. Do you understand?
I cannot bear it.
Well, God can help you bear everything. And I can illustrate that to you.
Where was God? Where was God?
Well, God is always in her universe, but mankind is often the person who removes themselves from God. So all of the things that happened in the Second World War, the majority of them were because of mankind removing themselves from God. If they had remained connected to God, none of those things could have even occurred.
They told us that God hated us.
I understand, but that's not true. God does not hate you. God does not hate you. And who told you that?
We should be there.
Who told you that? Can you see it was the people who were oppressing you that told you that?
Yes.
Yeah. And they're in worse condition than you. They're darker than you are. They're more hateful than you are. Right?
If we cannot find them, we try to find them and hurt them.
Yep.
We hurt them. We hurt people on earth. We feel it is right to exact justice.
You try to hurt the people on earth who are similar to the people who hurt you.
Yes.
Yes. I understand that. And I understand you wanting to do that. But what I'm suggesting to you is that wanting to do that is what is keeping you in the squalor in which you live. And what I'd like to do is show you a different way to live. But it involves you wanting to know and wanting to change.
There is discussion amongst us.
I can bring a woman to you who has had to go through the same things that you went through when you were on earth. And she is in a very different place now. And if I bring this woman to you, she will be able to show you how to get out of the place that you're currently in and into a place like where she lives. But while you remain angry, that's going to be very difficult to do.
cannot bear to be
subhuman.
Subjugated any longer.
Yeah.
We cannot bear weakness. We cannot bear it. We cannot be it.
When you say you cannot bear weakness, what you believe to be weakness and what I believe to be weakness are two very different things.
Yes.
Now, can I illustrate to you what's happening really? Every person that you connect to on earth that you cause to become like the oppressors that oppressed you, you're really turning those people into the same kind of men that harmed you. And
No, you're not.
Yes, you are. You look at what those men are doing. Are they not doing the same kinds of things that were done to harm you?
This is how they are. This is why we hurt them.
No, but what you're doing is you're turning these men into more rageful men, and those more rageful men now harm more women. And so what you're doing is turning men into the same kind of men who harmed you. And I'm suggesting to you that that's not a very wise thing to do. And I understand why you're doing it. I understand that it's the rage that's inside of you that drives these actions that you take.
But you accuse us. You accuse us when we see they are like this. We only harm them because they are like this.
Well, you look at the people you use to harm them. Look at those people. You know, the men that you use to harm the men who you feel need to be punished. What do they finish up turning out like?
Strong.
You think
Not like
these men, not like your husband.
Yes.
Okay, but
We don't like talking to you. It's very
But what I'd suggest you stay talking.
stirring things.
I suggest you stay talking to me because I can help you if you want to stay, engaged in this conversation.
We cannot feel this pain.
Why don't we ask this spirit to come? Can we do that? She's a lady who's experienced exactly the same things you've experienced when you were on earth. And she felt as angry as you did when she passed. Would you like?
She's a woman like us.
She's a woman who's experienced the same thing, but she doesn't look like you now because she learnt to do something different.
Okay.
Would you like to see her?
Some of us, yes.
Some of you would like to see her? Yep. Well, let's ask her to come. What do you notice about her?
She is too soft.
She's too soft? Yeah. What else do you notice about her, though? Does she look happy? She looks beautiful, doesn't she?
Mm.
Have you ever seen yourself in the mirror recently?
No, we don't. Why would we look in the mirror? There are more important. We do not have time for such feminine.
Well, you can learn a lot from a look in the mirror. That's the reason for doing it. And
she looks transparent. She looks
not even solid.
Yes.
Let's ask her to become a bit more solid so you can see her better.
Okay. Yes, we see she is a Jewish woman.
She's a Jewish woman, yes?
Mm.
Some of you may even recognise her.
Not I.
No?
There is one amongst us who does.
Yep.
Now she cries.
The one who recognises her
Yes.
cries, yes? And you don't want her to cry?
No. We cannot do this.
But if you had the opportunity of becoming like the woman that's in front of you, surely you'd want to take that opportunity. Now, that woman you believe is too weak, right? You believe she's too weak?
Yes.
But I can illustrate to you that she's not weak at all. Do you want me to illustrate that to you, to prove that to you? You said to me that you couldn't find the people who had harmed you on earth.
No.
Well, I can ask her to take you to those people.
Yes.
However, there's something that you're going to have to do if we do this, and that is you're not going to be able to harm them. So I need your promise first that you're not going to be able to harm the people who harmed you.
Can they harm us?
Well, that's something we can experiment with if you want, but I don't feel they can, no.
If you would take us to be harmed again, this would prove what I feel already about you.
Yeah, I'm not going to take you to be harmed again. However, does it seem like the woman who's standing in front of you would ever take you to be harmed by anyone?
No.
No.
She does not have the substance to even...
Well, the reality is that she's the person with the substance who's going to be able to protect you. Because the reality is, with your current set of emotions, if we took you to the spirits who harmed you, that they could certainly harm you again. And without the protection of this woman who you ridicule, you would have a lot of problems going to visit these spirits. So unless you can have some respect for the woman who's next to you, then there's not much point doing this. Because if you don't have some respect for the power that she has, she can't use it on your behalf. And so therefore you will be harmed by the same group of people that harmed you in the earth. So it just depends on what you would like to do.
No, I would wish to see them. I will go with her.
And you
not
promise,
all of us will go.
And you promise not to harm them.
Okay.
Because if you attempt to,
okay, no,
they will also possibly be able to harm you.
Yes, no, I will not. I will not.
Okay.
I desire to see them.
Mm-hmm. And this woman will be able to protect you. Okay? So let's do that. Let's go and have a look. What do you notice?
Darkness.
Can you see it's even worse than where you live?
What is this world? That is everything dark, and all of this discussion with you just makes me feel...
Well, I can explain what it is. I can explain why it is like it is. But it means being a bit open to the explanation.
I do not feel as I thought that I would.
Yes. Yeah.
I thought that I would rejoice in their
pain.
Yes.
Yeah.
But now I just feel
sorry for them.
The hopelessness.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
I feel you make me weak because now
I'm not trying to make you weak. What I'm trying to do is to help you get beyond the anger that you feel.
But this is our strength.
No. Look at your body while you're crying. Look at your body while you're crying. What do you notice? Can you see it improving?
Against self. Yes, it does not seem logic.
Yeah, that's right. So what I'm suggesting to you is the logic that you've applied to what you've been doing in the spirit world is not the logic that's real. It's not reality.
But do you not think that these men had an obligation to us as our husbands and our fathers? to save us.
They certainly
from
have. They have an
horror.
yes. They have an obligation to stand up for truth. However, they do not have an obligation to kill another person to stand up for truth. What you've been doing is you've been blaming the men who were actually loving you, and you want them to become the kind of men that hated you in order to protect you from the kind of men that hate you. And what I'm suggesting to you is that it's far better, if you're going to be angry with anyone, to be angry with the men who harmed you rather than being angry with the men who didn't harm you. That's what I'm suggesting. Now, I feel there's even a better action that you can take than that, but at least that is a better action than being angry with the men who did not harm you. The reality is, if you look at the situation in the First and Second World Wars and in all of the different conflicts that all of you ladies have been involved in, the reality is the majority of people, whether they opposed the oppressor or not, probably would have died. That's the reality.
Such horrible things were done to us.
Yes, I understand.
Some of us been treated like rats in a lab.
Yeah.
We thought out of everyone, our kin, we should stand for us.
Yes.
We felt that. We felt they didn't love us if they didn't do that.
Yes, I understand that. I understand the feelings, I do. I do understand the feelings. But people who are evil take evil actions. And encouraging a person who is not evil to become evil is not the best course of action.
But then it feels we must just lay down in front of evil.
Well, the reality is, if you look at my life and you look at the life of Mary who you're channeling through, you can see that we didn't fight back against evil, but we did stand up against evil. Can you see that? And that is the best course of action. And what's called passive resistance is the best form of action against evil.
So much shame. We feel so much shame about what they did to us.
Yeah, but the reality is that you are not to blame for what was done to you. You weren't to blame for what was done to you. No matter what they told you, you weren't to blame for it. That's the reality.
We want to blame them, but in the end we feel like we're to blame.
Yeah, and you're not to blame for what has happened to you. You're not to blame. There are very complex things going on in any conflict on the earth. And there's a lot of very, very dark spirits involved in every conflict on earth, and they influence very evil and dark people on earth to do many dark and evil deeds on earth. And the reality is the whole situation is very complex, but it all boils down to one primary thing, and that is a lot of people on earth are not willing to love. And they want to have their rage and their anger, and they want to express their rage and their anger towards other people. And that causes so much destruction on earth.
We don't know if we can keep talking to you. We can't handle these feelings.
Well, I would love for you to keep talking with me and just be open to feeling these feelings, because there is another way that's going to be able to help you handle these feelings that I haven't yet described to you. Can we talk about that? Yeah. I know it hasn't felt this way, but there actually is a God. And there is a God who actually constructed the entire universe based around how love gets reflected. And anything that's not in harmony with love becomes very dark, and anything that's harmonious with love becomes very bright. And the reason why the lady who is standing in front of you, who took you to visit these dark Nazis men who harmed you, the reason why she is very bright is because she has learnt about this love. Does that make sense? Yeah. She has learnt about this love. And what I'm going to suggest to you is that we can try an experiment so that you can feel some of this love as well. Yeah. And this love will help you with the pain.
Please, anything to help with the pain.
Yeah. Well, if you can just say to yourselves and feel this, that if there is a God, that you would like to feel some of her love enter you. Can you say that? If there is a God, we would like some of your love to enter us. And just have that feeling that you would like that to happen. That's okay, just breathe and let yourself feel. Now the pain is increasing for one primary reason, and that is because you have chosen in the past to take actions that were against love. And many of those actions that are against love now get exposed as you feel the love enter you. And that feels painful. So the key is to allow yourself to feel that pain. And just allow yourself to cry. That's it.
Many more have come.
Yeah, that's okay. And they can all do the same thing that you're doing.
Kind ones.
Yep. The kind ones will be able to help you. Yeah. These kind ones have learnt a lot more about love, and that's how they can help you also learn about love.
We didn't know that there could be such kindness.
Yeah. And this is why you got very angry, and this is why you took some of the actions that you took, because you didn't believe there was anything such as kindness or love. Yeah? But there is.
It hurts so much.
Yeah. Well, it's going to hurt for a bit because there's going to be things in you that you chose to do that you'll have to feel some pain about. Does that make sense? But the reality is that you did not deserve what happened to you. You didn't deserve any of those things that happened to you. Yeah?
Thank you for saying that.
Yeah. Now, I don't want to interrupt your crying too much, but I do want to show you something. Can I do that?
We need to go soon.
I understand. Just have a look at your bodies now. What do you notice?
It feels softer.
Yeah, yeah.
It's hard to receive the love.
Yeah. But if you can stay open to receiving the love, then things will become softer, but also you'll be able to live in a different location. And the spirits that are now surrounding you who want to take you to a different location, if you'd be willing to go.
Children.
I understand your concern for the children, and what I'm going to try to do is help the children. Is that okay? Yeah? And if you want to stay and what happens with the children, that's fine. But in the end, we'll be able to help the children really easily, I feel. Okay?
Kept them with us all this time.
I know you have. But you've also prevented them from being in a happier place by keeping them with
We
you.
want to protect them.
I understand you want to protect them, but unfortunately the way in which you've been protecting them has been shutting them down from feeling. And what we need to do is help them feel again. Does that make sense? And I'm perfectly happy for you to stay while we try to talk to the children.
Thank you.
Is that you okay?
Yes.
Yeah? Now, can you promise me something? That you listen to these bright spirits that are with you. These ones that have a feeling of kindness for you. Do you think you'll be able to listen to them? Yeah? Yeah?
We'll try. This is still very hard with you.
Yeah. One of the most difficult things you're going to find is to give up the anger that you feel.
Yes.
That's...
We want it. We want it back in some way.
Yeah.
So we do not have to feel so afraid. And
Well, what will happen is underneath the anger will be fear and shame, and underneath the shame and fear will be grief. Do you understand?
Yeah, we feel the pain,
Yeah.
we feel the grief.
But you can long for God to help you feel all of these emotions. And as you long for God's love to enter you, you'll notice at times when you stop crying, you'll notice that you feel happier. Do you understand?
We will try. We will try.
Can you see that you already feel happier?
Yeah, yes. Yes.
Can you see that you already feel now that there's some hope? Can you see that?
Yes.
Before you were feeling that everything was hopeless?
Yes. Yes.
And now you're starting to feel like there is some hope. And there is some love in the world. And there is some love in the spirit world.
We cannot see love in the world.
But there is some in the spirit world.
Yes, against our expectations.
Yeah. And the reality is, if there was no love in the world, then I wouldn't have had this conversation with you. Can you see that? Yeah. So there's also some love in the world. So if you can trust these bright spirits that are with you, they can help you go through these anger feelings that you've had. They can help you with the fear and shame, but they'll also be able to show you that there's no need to fear anymore, and there's no need to be ashamed anymore. They can show you that too.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah.
We must go.
And we can talk to the children, so you don't have to worry about the children.
Please.
Yeah.
Help.
How you doing, babe?
Yeah. Oh, cranky as Yeah. Just some of their emotions at the end, they're similar to mine. So it was good. They're not solved completely, but
No.
they didn't want to stay.
No. They're feeling large amounts of grief and they're a bit confronted by that. So.
Yeah. Yeah. It's like as soon as you were talking to the man, it was like they lost some kind of. They wanted to stop you.
That's why I always talking first, because that was the only way the women were actually coming. They didn't want to come.
Well, the women lost their addiction.
That's what it felt like.
Their
They
addiction was to dump on the men constantly, and drive the men into feeling guilt constantly, and drive the men into feeling you're weak, you're weak, you're weak, your weakness caused our death, your weakness, and so forth. And
as soon as you talk to them, they were like, what the hell have you done? And then they started to feel all stirred up emotionally, and then they were like, now we're really cranky with you.
Now, Matt, you've got some of the children with you, have you? No.
Sure. Probably some really similar emotions.
Yeah. We want to, if you can just take a bit of a breath, because I feel you're going to be the best person for the children to come through.
Okay.
If you just relax a bit, because we want to help the children as well while we're at it. So. Is there any questions so far, guys? Have you please?
Someone like putting another log on the fire. I really identify with women.
Yeah.
I find that I do that.
Yeah.
I don't understand why I do it.
Yeah.
And I found myself the whole way through this feeling chills, but going, just get out of here, get away.
Yeah.
I could get up to Bruce.
Yep. Can I just make a suggestion? Whenever we do channeling in a large group, the spirits who come are going to have fairly strong similarities to what's happening in our own life. So the reality is that since this group of women were present, it's a good indication that there's many women in the room who have a similar degree of rage about weak men and have a similar degree of rage about wanting the man to protect them and wanting the man to look after them and so forth.
And these women felt that the men were weak because they were more connected with their emotions.
Yeah.
And they felt it was weakness to cry, that you'd be overpowered. Yeah.
Now, the reason why many of the women in the room also felt a degree of wanting to run away from the conversation is because some of the spirits with you didn't want to hear the information. So in other words, there's women spirits with you who do not want to hear that actually being soft and feminine is the way to go. They want to be rigid and hard because that's the only way they see through their fear and trauma. So often these women are quite traumatised women who have passed into the spirit world, who then influence other women on the earth to stay in an angry place about trauma rather than going into grief about trauma. And a good sign of this is if you watch something on television that really affects you, where women or children are being harmed, for example, and the feelings that rise in you, rather than feeling grief rise in you, you actually feel anger rise in you, then that's a very good indication that you have these kind of spirits with you. Does that make sense? And the key is to understand the dynamic of what's going on, and that is that many of these women spirits who have passed have been traumatised quite badly before they passed. And so then they have this feeling that they've got to make every other woman on earth strong and more masculine and dominate the male. Don't you allow him to ever harm you. You make sure you pick a male who's strong and big, someone who can protect you. And a lot of times they're heavily influencing even relationships, into that kind of to that kind of relationship. And yet many of you ladies then feel disappointed with the relationship because that kind of male isn't sensitive to your emotional needs. Generally, he's not very sensitive sexually either to you, and so forth. So there's a lot of dynamic that it creates that is often quite disappointing as well. But the reality is that if those women in the spirit world can be assisted to connect to their grief, just like, I assisted this group of women, even against their own, they didn't really want to connect to their grief. But if you can help them connect to their grief, they can progress into a place of more brightness. And then they realise, actually, the way to protect myself is not to become harder, but rather to become more as God created me to be, like more gentle and softer to my emotions. And as I do that, I'm actually automatically safer and more powerful. And so I feel many women on the earth at the moment are in this conundrum because they believe that softness and gentleness and nurturing type of emotions are actually weak and powerless. And the reality is that you have many spirits, women spirits in the spirit world telling you this. And then on top of that, the proof in the earth seems to be that as well, that if you go into that condition, then you'll be more powerless. But the reality is that you actually have more internal power in that condition. So it is a bit of the law of attraction that this group of women have come in the manner that they have.
Okay, I think so.
You right now?
Yep.
Have I got time to go to the toilet?
Yeah, that's
Does anyone else need to go to the toilet? Outside, yeah. I'll do that. And how's everyone? The children are just waiting for us, actually, and they're feeling quite distressed. So if we can just... Is everyone back in, or is there a few more to come back in? There's a few missing, I think, isn't there? So, yeah, so we'll just wait a little bit more, but they just want to get underway as soon as we can because they're a bit distressed, waiting and not knowing what's going on. Now, there's a whole group of children, and there's quite a few million of them, but we'll be able to speak to just a number of them, and the rest are listening anyway to the conversation. So are we all settled?
So there's a little boy, his name is Thomas. Thomas.
Yeah.
12, that's what he said, 13, sorry.
Yeah.
I got a little boy, Josie, who's 6.
6, yeah. Okay. So Josie? Josie.
Yeah, he's
Joseph.
Yeah, he calls himself Josie.
Yep.
Okay, so Thomas is sort of, he's like...
The leader.
The appointed, yeah. For this group anyway.
Yeah. Just wait a little bit. That's it. Okay. There's a couple more coming in. I'm sorry. Is everyone in from outside? Did you see anybody? Yeah. Good. With Thomas?
Yeah.
Yep.
We've never done this.
Talking through a person before?
Yeah.
Yep. That's okay. Does it feel a bit strange?
Yes.
Yeah.
We're keeping some distance from her.
Yeah.
That's okay.
You don't need to. She's going to look after you. It's not like she's not going to try and harm you. She's not as angry as the ladies that you were with. So.
We don't understand what's happening.
Yeah.
We're alone.
Yeah.
We're cold.
Just frightened.
Yeah. Did you feel the protection of the women when they were with you?
Yeah, our mothers.
Yeah. But you could also feel they were pretty angry too.
We didn't really realise
how angry they were.
They feel different now, but they're not with us.
Yes, but we can bring them back at any time, so that you don't need to worry. If I can explain some things, we can. Would you like to be in a really good place to live?
Yeah, we're frightened of bad people coming.
Yes, no, there won't be any bad people coming. Can I show you that around us at the moment, I'm just going to get some bright people to show themselves to you. And they're not bad people, they're going to be kind people. Can you see how many bright people there are around? Can you see those bright people?
Yeah.
Yeah.
But we don't know them.
No, that's okay. That's okay. They will care for you. And they'll protect you against any bad people. Does that make sense?
It's ladies.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So they can protect you against any bad people coming while we're having a conversation.
We're afraid of bad men.
I understand that. Yep. And then I can help you and answer any questions you have, and then show you what's the best thing to do, and so that you can live in a happier place. Does that sound good?
Okay.
Yep. There's places in the spirit world that are really ideally suited for helping you.
We don't understand very much.
I understand. Do you understand that you've died?
No.
No? No. So you've not understood before that you were not on the earth anymore? No. And that's what's happened. That the bad men who did things to you finished up killing you, and now you're in the spirit world. But the thing is, they couldn't kill you. You see, they couldn't kill you because the reality is that you are a soul and you have a spirit body, and it doesn't matter what happens to your physical body. In the end, nobody can really kill you anyway. Does that make sense?
It means our life's over.
No, it doesn't. It just actually means your life's just beginning. Because there's a whole thing, the spirit world is made up of this huge universe that has all these different things in it that you can experience.
We're afraid.
I know you're afraid. I know you're afraid, but can you just remind yourself that you've got all these very bright spirits around you who are protecting you? So you don't need to be afraid.
We miss our mother.
Yes, I understand. And these bright spirits will be able to take you to your mothers. And I also feel, though, that you'll want to spend a bit of time away from your mums until your mums be a bit less angry than they are as well. Does that make sense? And you can go and visit your mum any time you want, and then you can go back and be where you normally would be, in a happier place, and then you can go and visit your mum and go back and forward any time you want. Would you like us to show you that? What if we show you that now? What if our bright spirit friends take you by the hand and they take you back to your mums? Can you see?
Scared to go with them.
Yeah? Why are you scared to go with them? Let yourself feel about them. Do they look like they're angry people? No?
No.
They feel kind?
No.
Yeah. So what if...
We never met anyone else before.
I understand. Because your mums are being very protective of you. Yeah. So you've never really met anybody else in the time you've been in the spirit world. But there are lots and lots of people in the spirit world. Lots of billions of people, actually. Do you know how much a billion is? No, it's like... Do you know how much 10 is?
Yep.
A billion is like 10 times 10 times 10 times 10 times 10 times 10
wow.
times 10 times 10 times 10 times 10.
Wow.
9 times.
Where does everyone fit?
Well, the universe is really, really big. It's really big. Does that make sense? So there's a lot of people in the spirit world. Now, some of the people in the spirit world are not very nice people.
That's what we're afraid of.
And that's why these brighter spirits are around you, to protect you, so that you don't have to meet any of the people that are not nice people.
We didn't know there was nice people here.
Yeah, I understand. Because you've been living with your mums, and where your mums were, there wasn't very many nice people, right?
I didn't feel
we're scared without our mums.
I understand.
But it's a bit different. Like,
can you feel it's a bit happier as well?
It looks different around us.
Yeah. Well, the first thing we'd like to do is to take you to the place where these bright spirits would like to have you stay for a while. You don't have to stay there permanently, but it's just a place where there's better place for you to stay than where you currently are. Would you like that?
Yeah.
Okay, well, we'll do that now, and you still stay talking to us, but you'll go to that place as well. Does that sound good? So we can still talk.
Okay.
And you have some questions about this new place. So I'd like to answer your questions about this new place.
Okay.
Okay. So let's do that. Let's get our bright spirit friends to take you there. What do you notice? Pretty amazing, huh?
Yeah.
There's colours.
So many colours and different things that we've never seen.
Yeah. See how I said your life's just beginning?
What about mums?
Well, your mums can get to the same location, but it's going to take a little bit of extra time for them to get to that location because they've got a bit of dark emotions to deal with.
And what about Papa?
Papa too will take a little bit of extra time to get to that place because he's got his guilt to deal with. Does that make sense?
He'll come.
They can come there, yeah, but it depends upon their desire. Like they have to go through a process, and it depends upon how much they want to go through it.
So Papa's in a place like this?
Both Mum and Dad are not in a place like this yet, right? Now, the reason why they're not in a place like this yet is because they've got a few things to actually go through and learn first.
But they'll find us?
Well, actually, you can find them. Can I show you how to do that?
I can find Papa.
Can I show you both how to do that? And everyone can do it.
I feel bad, like I shouldn't leave Mum.
Yeah, well, Mum needs to go through her stuff by herself. She can't. She's not going to be helped going through it with you staying with her. But you can visit her at any time you want.
Okay.
Can I show you how to do that? Well, you notice coming from your heart, you notice there's some cords. Can you see the strings coming from your heart? It looks like energy, different colours.
Yes.
You notice there's some there that are sort of like a golden white colour. There's a few of those. Can you see that?
Yeah.
How many of those are you noticing?
There's one gold.
Yeah.
One or two white ones.
Okay.
Are they our brothers and sisters?
Well, no, what we want to do, rather than guessing what they are, let's follow the cord and see where it takes us.
Really?
Yeah. So let's do that, right? So our spirit friends that are with you will help you follow the cord.
They'll stay with us.
They'll stay with you. And they'll follow the cord and they'll see where it takes you. So let's follow that golden one first. So where is that taking you? Where does that golden one take you?
Is that Papa?
Yeah, see how it's taking you back to your dad?
Papa!
Yeah.
Can I say hello?
Yeah, of course you can say hello to him.
Papa!
Now, you don't want to stay with him though.
I just found him.
No, you can visit him any time you want.
Papa.
And see how he's going. But you notice the surroundings that Papa's in. Can you see the surroundings?
Yeah, he looks a bit different.
He looks a bit different. And it's not as bright a surroundings as where you could live, is it? You see that?
So I can come and go.
You can come back and go. You can come and go just by following that cord. Do you see?
Yeah, I'm back.
And what about yourself, Thomas? Like, when you follow that golden cord, where does that take you?
I feel like I'm not allowed to go. I have to go to the one that goes to Mum.
So it's not the golden cord that takes you to Mum.
Mm-mm.
Which cord do you think it is that's going to take you to Mum? Can you feel the cord that might take you to Mum? What colour is that cord?
It's like a whitey, grey colour.
Okay. And the reason why it's like a whitey grey colour is because it has different emotions in it. The grey emotions are a bit about fear. The white emotions are about love. So there's a mixture of fear and love with your mum. Can you see?
Yep.
And that's what you feel, isn't it, when you see your mum? There's a mixture of fear but also some love.
Yeah, I'm afraid.
Yeah, yeah. But you can always follow that cord to your mum and talk to her anytime you want, and then you can come back to where you are. You can do that anytime you want. Does that make sense?
I feel like Mum is going to be angry at me.
And Mum might be angry at you. That is true, because your mum does have some anger in her.
She's going to think I'm bad for going somewhere else.
Well, the reality is you're not bad for going somewhere else, even if your mum thinks that. The reality is that you have a certain condition of your own soul of love, and that's different to your mum's condition. And your mum's not as bright a condition as you. Right? And so you need to allow yourselves to be able to go back and forth if you want. To visit her, you can visit her. But my suggestion is to not spend long times with her, because she might get angry with you, and if you do, then you want to leave there and go back to the nicer place that no one's angry at.
I feel really sad because I like the nice place, but now I feel like I'm not allowed to have fun here because
you
of
are.
Mum.
You are allowed to have fun. The feeling you're getting is from your mum, that you're not allowed to have fun unless she's having fun. Right? And that's not true. That's just her feelings. That's the feeling that she has, and it's not your feeling. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
And what we need to do is we need to stop taking on Mum and Dad's feelings as if they are our own feelings.
How do I stop doing it?
Well, at the moment, that's what some of the bright spirits are going to be able to show you. They're going to be able to show you that you can go and trace these cords back to where they are, but sometimes it's not always going to be good to go and visit them. Does that make sense?
Yeah, I just followed the other one.
Yeah.
This is for my sister.
Right. And
she's with Mum.
Yeah. And she doesn't need to stay with Mum. She could be where you are. So there might be...
Can I tell her?
Yeah, you can tell her that. You can tell her that. Yeah? Does she want to come with you? Yeah? So just grab her hand and we'll bring her back to where you are and see. And she can go back and visit Mum too, if she wants to.
Okay.
Right. Now, Mum's just holding on to both of you because Mum feels some feelings about that. And Mum needs to work her way through the feelings so that she can love you and let you both be in a happier place, even though she isn't there yet. Does that make sense?
Can Mum come to visit us?
She can, as long as she works through those emotions. Can you see? So if she doesn't work through them, if she wants to be angry about it, then she won't be able to come and visit you. She'll only be able to come and visit you when she's not angry about it anymore.
But it's okay if I stay here.
It's okay if you stay where you are, yeah. So this place that I've brought you to is called Summerland.
I like it.
You like it? It's pretty nice, eh?
Yeah.
And this is a place where you can learn a lot. And
I feel sad, a bit sad.
What about? When you feel sad, all you need to do is cry. Does that make sense? You don't have to... Before, when you were with Mum, she told you to stop crying. Right? But you're allowed to cry when you feel sad. Does that make sense? So just whenever you feel sad, all you need to do is just let yourself cry, and we can still talk about what you feel sad about.
I feel so tired from being scared of the bad men.
Yeah. So just have a cry that it's relief now, isn't it? You don't have to ever see the bad man anymore. So it's a feeling of relief.
Thanks for bringing us here.
It's a pleasure.
Lots of us are coming now.
Yeah. Do you want to go back and get the rest of the guys and tell them what's here?
Yeah.
Because all of them can come here.
Yeah, and they're on their own without us.
That's right. So let's go back and get them. And they can all come here.
Yeah.
Is everyone here now?
Yes, it's hard for some of them because of the mums.
Because of the mums, yeah. Can you explain to them what I just explained to you about the mums?
Some other people are helping me.
Yeah. And what these bright spirits with you will do is they'll help explain to you when's a good time to go and visit Mum and when's not such a good time to go and visit Mum.
It feels so different because I feel good.
That's right. Yeah.
Good.
It's good, eh? Yeah. Now, God's made this big universe for you to play in. And the key is to understand the laws that are in the universe so that you can play everywhere.
Okay.
Does that make sense?
Yeah.
And all the laws are about love, pretty much. So, you know how Mum's in a bit of a darker place than you are currently? That's because there's less love in your mum at the moment than there is in you. Does that make sense?
Is Mum bad?
No, it just means that there's less love, and where she is at the moment is the best place for her. That's the place that she feels the most comfortable in because of the less love in her. Does that make sense? Whereas you feel more comfortable where you are. If your mum came to where you are right now, she'd be less comfortable than where she is right now. Does that make sense to you?
Yeah.
Because there's less love in her, and so she'd be less comfortable being in a place of more love.
Right.
Yeah? And the whole universe is built around this, built around this love.
What about the bad men?
Well, the bad men have very little love in them, and so they live in a very, very dark place. Right? Do you want me to? Do you want me to show you where they live?
No.
Not really. No.
Can they come here though?
No. Well, you can see how hard it is even for your mum to come.
Someone told me.
Yeah. That's okay.
It's yucky.
Yeah, it's yucky where the bad men live, isn't it? But they can't come to where you are. They have to live where they are until they become good men. And they can become good men. They can change.
Good.
But while they stay bad men, they're going to have to stay where they are.
Thanks. Thanks for bringing us here because this is nice.
It's pretty good, isn't it?
Yep.
Now, where you are, there's lots to learn.
Yeah.
Lots to do.
It's so good. We can play here.
Yes. Yep. You can play as much as you want. You can experiment as much as you want. And you can also grow in love as much as you want. And remember I said that love is the thing that lets you experience all the universe. So it's worth thinking about growing in love as well.
I want to be an explorer like Christopher Columbus.
Yeah? Yeah. Yeah.
I learn about him.
Yeah. So to be an explorer like him in the universe, you need to learn to explore love as well. Does that make sense to you? Explore what love is all about. That's the important thing.
Okay.
Because the basic rule in the universe is the more love you have, the more you can explore. And the less love you have, the less you can explore. So you remember the bad men that harmed you?
Yeah.
They're in a very, very confined place and they can't explore very much, can they, where they are? No. And where your mum is, when you visit her, she's in a better place, but not as good as where you are. And so she can't explore as much as you can.
Right.
Can you see?
Yeah.
So if you imagine getting into a brighter place, you can explore even more than what you currently have where you are.
My cousin came here now.
Yeah. And he's brighter.
Yeah, it's right what you're saying.
Yeah. And he can explore a lot more.
Yeah. Yep.
Yeah. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
So it's a basic principle of the universe that the more love you have in you, the more you can explore.
And I don't have to feel bad about Mum?
No. Whatever Mum's feeling is Mum's feelings. You don't have to feel guilty about Mum's feelings. And Mum's able to let go of her anger, and she's able to let go of her fear, and she's able to let go of her shame, and she's able to get to where you are, and in fact she's able to get to any place where you might go in the future if she really wants it herself. But she's going to have to really want it herself.
I would like her to come here and be with me and my sister.
Yeah, so go and tell her about the place you live. And tell her that she needs more love
Okay.
to get there. Does that make sense?
Okay, yeah.
You can go and explain that to her once you learn more. And so what we want is these bright spirits that are around you now, they want to talk to you and show you all the different things that you can do.
But will they have to go somewhere else soon?
The bright spirits?
Yeah.
Well, they all have a place where they live, and they live in a better place than where you can live at the moment.
So who will look after us?
You will be looked after permanently by different ones, yeah?
Okay.
But they'll be able to come and go anytime they want.
I still feel a bit afraid about being alone.
Well, whenever you feel like afraid, the key is to feel afraid rather than trying to avoid the feeling. You remember how just earlier when you wanted to cry, you felt sad, and I said, all you need to do is let yourself cry. Well, it's the same when you're afraid. All you need to do is let yourself shake. Does that make sense?
Yep.
You don't have to stop it from happening. And if you do that, then you just stay where you are and you're still protected where you are. And if you're worried, then all you do is you ask God to come and protect you for a bit, and God will send somebody to protect you while you're worried. Does that make sense? While you feel, but you need to feel the fear.
It's really nice.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's a lot different than where you used to be for the last 50 years or so, hey? Yeah. Yeah. And sometimes you'll remember that and you'll have a cry, so you let yourself cry. Does that make sense?
Mm-hmm.
There are things that will just come up naturally where you feel like, oh, that was sad, and you let yourself have a cry and just let yourself have a cry then and there. You don't have to hold on to it.
It seems a lot easier than that. Well, we didn't understand anything.
Yeah, and the problem is that your mum didn't understand that either, and so they couldn't teach you that. Whereas these brighter spirits that are around you, they can teach you things that your mum can't teach you.
Yeah.
Does that make sense? Now, at some point, hopefully mum will learn all those things as well, and she'll want to be where you are, and maybe mum will want to be even further than that. You know, she'll want to have more love in her heart too, and as she wants more love in her heart, then she'll desire to be in new places. Would you like to give some pictures of other places you can go to that you can't get to just yet because there's not enough love there? Would you like us to show you some pictures of those?
Yeah. I feel a bit sad about not being alive.
About not being alive, about having died early. Yeah. But I understand they're sad, so you remember every time you're sad, what do you... Just cry. You just let yourself cry. But understand too that the spirit world is really, really big, right? And you're not going to miss out on much in your life at all. Anything that you could have done on earth, you'll be able to do and more. Like, did you know in the spirit world, you can fly?
No.
Will you notice how the bright spirits come and go? How do they come and go?
Well, I didn't look.
So have a look.
Wow. I'm a bit scared about that now. I don't know. I want to do it.
Do you want to try it?
Yeah.
Well, can you see a tree nearby? See a tree nearby?
Yeah.
Okay. Imagine, so you can see up the top of where the branch is at the top. Mm-hmm. You could stand up there, couldn't you?
Yes.
So instead of climbing the tree, should we fly up to that tree?
Yep. I did it.
And can you see how easy it was? All you had to do was imagine yourself being there, didn't you? And you were there.
Yeah. This is great.
Yeah. You can't do that on Earth. So can you see how even though you're sad, you need to feel some of the sad. But the reality is there's a whole world to explore that's really, really different. And there's a whole lot of things you're going to enjoy.
Did you know I'm still on the tree?
Yeah, I didn't think you'd be coming down to me.
Okay. I feel a bit jumbled up.
Yeah. So that's a bit of confusion. That's a feeling of confusion. And
it's sad in my heart a little bit still.
Yeah.
So I'll just have
Can you
to
feel
cry.
what you're sad about? Not really. just cry. It doesn't matter even know. You don't even have to know what you're sad about, really, do you? You just have a cry, and if you have a cry, then your sad's over.
I think I feel happy too.
Yeah. And sometimes you cry when you're happy too, right? Yeah, because it's like you spent a long time in a place that wasn't very nice, and it's a relief to be in a place that's a lot nicer, isn't it? Yeah.
It's so much nicer.
Yeah. Now the bright spirits with you, they can help you through all of these different things, and they can tell you a lot of things about the spirit world. But if you remember that one thing, that the more love you have in your heart, the more you can explore.
Thanks.
That's a really important thing.
Can we talk to you again?
Yeah, sure you can. Yeah. No, that's things. Yeah. So you'll be able to trust those guys that are with you now? Yeah? Both the ladies and the men that are wanting to help you? Yeah?
Yeah, there's men now.
Yeah?
Yeah.
Do you want to see where they want you to live for a little bit? Do you want to check that out?
Is it going to be better or worse than here?
Well, it's going to be pretty good.
Okay.
So do you want to fly there?
Yeah.
Okay. So what if we fly there with... do all the guys want to fly there? All the girls and guys want to fly there? Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
They didn't try it yet.
No, they didn't try it. Do you want to try it first?
Yeah.
Just try it up the tree. But all of you can't go on the same tree.
They have friends now.
Mm-hmm.
Everyone has a new friend.
Yep.
Who's not from our group.
Yep. These are friends that are young like you.
Mm.
But they're people who have been in the spirit world, in this place, this Summerland place, for a longer time. Yeah. Yeah.
They're so nice, it makes me feel sad again.
Yeah, cry again, that's fine. Does that make sense? Every time these feelings of sadness come up, just let them come out. Don't have to hold on.
Happy sad, I feel happy sad.
Yeah, that's good. It's okay to feel happy sad.
Okay, let's go to the place.
Let's go to the place it is. You're going to get a surprise.
Okay.
Okay, so let's have a look. We'll go with some of those bright spirits.
Oh, it's so cool.
So what do you notice?
Well, I just really like it.
Yeah? Can you see how everything around you is making you want to ask questions?
Yeah.
So everything around you is geared to help you learn things.
I didn't think of that.
Yeah. Because you want to ask questions about what's there.
Yeah.
And can you see the place where you sleep? You need to sleep a bit, yeah.
Right. It looks nice. It looks great.
Yeah. Like a big palace.
Yeah. But it's like, yeah.
Can you try and describe it?
Sort of like, I remember, sort of.
Yeah. Isn't this interesting? How come you remember?
I don't know. I feel sad again.
That's okay. You can remember you can cry every time you're sad.
It's like my best place.
Yeah? And what else do you notice?
It's all the things I like.
Yeah? Can I explain what's happening? When you used to go to sleep every single day when you were on Earth, this was the place you came to. So you've been here before. Feels like you've been here before, huh? Can you remember where everything is?
Yes.
See, every night we go to sleep, and particularly if we're children, every night we go to sleep, generally we come to this kind of place in Summerland.
It's like my place.
That's right, it is your place. It's not just like your place, it is your place.
Does everyone have a place?
Everyone has a place.
How does it all fit?
Because the universe is really big. Remember I said that?
That's so good. I feel so sad that I haven't been here.
Yeah. Because the problem with staying with your mum is that you've been locked up in that place for a long period of time. But for all that time that Mummy wanted you with her, you couldn't come to this place.
But why did Mummy want me to come here?
Because she didn't know this place even existed. She didn't even know that you could have come here.
I thought she knew everything.
No, mummies don't know everything. Neither do daddies, actually. That's the problem. You know, there's a lot of things they think they know, but they often don't know much at all, actually.
I feel yucky.
What do you feel now?
I feel like I've been yucky to other people.
Mm-hmm. Well, what these people are going to help you do, what the bright spirits are going to help you do, is to feel what's called sad about that, but there's a word for it. It's called remorse or repentance. So every time you've been yucky to another person, what will happen is if it comes up, you just let yourself have a cry and ask God to forgive you for that. Does that make sense? And they'll show you how to do that.
I trust them.
Yeah. And when you ask God to forgive you for things where you've been yucky, then God's bit of the extra of God's love come and takes away the reason why you've been yucky. And some of those reasons, most of them come from mum or dad. They didn't actually come from you in the first place.
I don't want to be yucky anymore.
No.
Thanks for being my friend.
It's my pleasure. It's my pleasure, Tom. Yeah. It's a pretty good system, though, isn't it? Yeah.
I'm going to explore it.
You see, everything that you learn too, if you wanted to, you can go back and tell Mum about it. Right?
Yeah.
And then when Mum gets angry with you, you say, "Sorry, Mum, I can't stay." Right? And just encourage her that she can become more loving and be in a similar place, because she can actually. Yeah? And would you like to see where you could also be in the future? Would you like to see that? Because there's even better places.
Okay.
I've got some friends that are now in some children friends who are now in the what's called the seventh dimension or seventh sphere.
Yeah.
And they're about your age, not much older than you, about the same age as you actually. Would you like to meet them?
Yeah.
Yep. So let's meet them. And what if they give you a picture of where they live and what they've been doing?
I can't. Is that in this world?
Well, it's not in the dimension you're living in. The dimension you're living in is called the first dimension or the first sphere. Where they live is in the seventh dimension or the seventh sphere. So there's 6 dimensions between those two places. Do you understand? And yeah, so it is in the universe, and you can get there. Remember how to get there? Remember the one rule I said?
Love.
Love. So there's more love that the ones who are in front of you have received, and that enables them to go to those places.
Okay, I want to learn this thing.
Yeah, it's pretty good, hey?
Yep.
Yeah.
I want to go there because it looks really good.
Yeah, and there's places like there's a 7th dimension, then there's the 8th, and then there's a 9th, and then there's a 10th, and then there's 11th, and then there's 12th. So you imagine what these must look like. Then there's 13 and 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20, 21, 22, 23, 24, 25, 26, 27.
It's too much.
Right? And
so, can I visit other people that
you knew on Earth?
Yeah.
Yep, you can, but you can't visit the people who are in a higher dimension without asking them to come and visit you.
I can ask people to come and visit me?
Yep, you can. So if somebody's in a lower dimension than you, then they won't be able to visit you. You'll have to visit them. But if somebody's in a higher dimension than you, then you won't be able to visit them. They'll have to visit you. Does that make sense?
Yeah. I'm going to ask Dad to come visit me.
Yeah?
Yeah.
Where do you think your dad is?
I don't know, but I think it's up when the cord
The gold cord?
Yeah.
Why don't you follow that? And if you can't go any further, then that means that he's in a higher place than you are.
Yeah, that's what happened before when I
You tried to follow it? Yeah. So why don't you ask whoever's at the end of that cord to come and visit you?
It's not Dad.
Who is it?
It's Granddad.
Granddad, yeah.
I don't call him Granddad. She keeps using words I don't use.
What do you call him? Upa. Opa.
Yeah, okay. I want to go now and talk to Papa.
Okay, that's good, because he's in a brighter condition. He must have more love, and if he's got more love, then he can teach you about love.
He's so nice.
Yeah.
He's so nice.
Yeah. Now, just before you go though, can I ask how everyone else is doing? All the other guys that were with you. Everyone's fine? Everyone understood what I was saying?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think so.
Now everyone wants to go and experiment, don't they?
Yep.
Yeah. So.
Some people are sad.
Yeah.
And then other people are playing.
Yeah.
And yeah.
And the ones that are sad, remember I said all you need to do is just let yourself cry when you're sad, and then the sadness will be over. Remember I said that?
Mm.
Yeah.
I feel a bit embarrassed.
What about?
Because there's all those people watching me.
You mean the people in the room now that you noticed?
I just noticed.
Okay. Yeah. Yeah. These are all people on Earth who are learning about the spirit world and learning about how things work, and they're also learning about love as well, because they want to learn about love. So you don't need to be embarrassed. Like, you've just taught them quite a lot about love already by having a chat with us.
I feel like I've been a bit silly.
No, you've been good. You've been good. You've been yourself, and that's really important. You see, a lot of people on Earth don't know how to be themselves.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, and when I talked to you, I could tell that you were like me.
Yeah?
Like...
In what way?
Like I could just say what I think.
Yeah.
But I'm not supposed to be like that.
In front of the rest of them.
With grown-ups.
Yeah. So you can feel from some of them in the audience that they don't want you to be like that.
Well, Mum, yeah.
Yeah. And that's why you feel a bit uncomfortable.
Yeah.
Yeah. When you're just with me, you feel pretty comfortable, because I can let you just be who you are.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, the reality is this is something that people in the audience need to learn. They need to learn how to just be themselves. Does that make sense? And to not sort of criticise anybody being themselves. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Yeah. So even by us talking about this, that's helped them know that. Does that make sense? Yeah. So it's good to have interactions like this, because people on the earth then finish up learning a lot of things that they wouldn't have otherwise learned until they passed into the spirit world.
Thanks.
My pleasure. Yep. So everybody now knows they're loved. We make sure of that. All of the people that were with you, there was a lot of people with you. How many people were with you when we started talking?
Well, I never...
You didn't count them, did you? No. But some of our spirit friends have. How many were there?
5 million.
Yeah, 5 million. Now, can we just make sure you don't have to check on every one of them, because that's a lot of checking. But if we can just have our spirit friends tell us that every one of them's fine, and then we're right. But if any of them need a bit more help, then I'm happy to give them a bit more help.
everyone's okay. They've all got a friend.
They've all got a friend now. That's good. Yep.
Okay.
Okay. You want to talk to Grandpa?
Yep.
Yep. No worries.
Thank you.
It's lovely to meet you, Thomas.
Bye.
Bye.
He was really cute. He really got him. I didn't feel anything projection, but he was just like, whoa! All of a sudden, he didn't want to talk anymore. Yeah.
So one of the reasons why he didn't want to speak anymore is because he could feel those projections that you have going, like as a group of, not allowing yourself to be yourself, and therefore not allowing other people to be themselves. Does that make sense? Yeah. So, and it's a fairly large projection coming from most people on Earth. So most of the children who come to speak, if they tune into an audience, they very rapidly want to go again. And that's often why you don't get children communicating with groups of people on Earth.
You know how he was... he had a lot of... All of a sudden, I felt like this... he suddenly realised that he'd been nasty to people on Earth. He didn't really understand what he'd done, but he suddenly felt really sad.
What had happened was the mothers, who were in a rage, were causing the children that were with them to go into this real angry place with people on the earth, and to attempt to get them to be stronger, like their term, stronger. And so a lot of the boys and girls who are a bit older, so instead of the younger ones like 5, 6 or 7, I'm talking now the ones that are near teenage years, a lot of them engaged in behaviour to get their mother's approval. And so unfortunately a lot of the children then did what mum and dad wanted, well, mum in particular in this case, wanted them to do. And so he will have some feelings of remorse of those different things that happened. As he works through.
And how does that affect his position in the spirit world? Like, if he's done... Because I could also... I could sort of see his home, and it was still... It wasn't yucky, like it was nice. Where
we took them initially was to Summerland, but his actual home is not going to be in Summerland for a little while.
Yeah, because it seems there's grey there as well.
This is why I was encouraging him to feel the sadness and remorse when it's present. Because if he does that, he'll very rapidly be into Summerland and then beyond that. But the reality is he has taken actions that were unloving to people on earth in order to get his mother's approval. And once he deals with the desire for his mother's approval, then he will also have dealt with the cause as to why he took those unloving actions.
And that was the other feeling he had at the end, was that he'd sort of engaged in this process, and he felt really sort of childlike, and then at the end he felt like, especially when he saw there was adults watching, he hadn't been a good boy, like he's older and he should be more mature, like he had this real so I guess that's a hook into the parents as well.
Exactly. Dennis?
Would he have been overfocusing on Earth?
He would have probably at his mother's request, or I would say it's more at his mother's insistence, he would have automatically been trying to do whatever his mother directed him to do. So if his mother noticed a little boy on earth who was too soft, his mother would have wanted him to make that little boy harder. Does that make sense? To turn him into a strong man in the end. So some of the actions he would have taken would have been towards children, certainly. In order to toughen them up, as per mum's instructions.
Are there lots of
children in the spirit world then who aren't in Summerland, they're being held in other places.
Yes, by their parents.
Died with their parents, so...
Often because they died with them, but also because of the different emotional bonds that parents impose upon them. This is where, as parents, we have very, very demanding emotions towards our children generally. And so when our children pass, one of the first tasks that spirits who are helpers try to do is break the emotional bond a bit between the parent and the child, because it's not a love-based bond, it's an addiction bond based on the parent's demands. And the love-based bonds will survive, but the addiction-based bonds need to go for the child in order for the child to progress. But unfortunately, it is very, very hard at times to break those addiction-based bonds. And so you get many groups of children in the spirit world staying with their parents for unnecessarily long periods of time, and often being in as much turmoil as their parents as a result of it, when they don't even need to be in that location. Yeah. And so there are whole groups of spirits in the spirit world who are adept at helping the child break away from their parent, the parent's bond to them, which is an addiction-based bond. But they're not always very successful, and they certainly are less successful than you can be on earth doing it. So in that process that I went through, one of the things that I was focusing on was trying to help them understand that they could go back and visit their mum at any time, but spending time all the time with mum is going to be very uncomfortable, and they need to understand why. And that's because mum is in a less state of love than they themselves are, and so therefore it's going to be uncomfortable spending time with her while she's working her way through her love issues.
But it was interesting because he felt a lot of guilt about that until he sort of was in Summerland for a little bit of time.
Yeah.
But when he first went there,
the first emotion
guilty.
Children feel is guilt. Yeah. But even the emotion of guilt is because of the projections of the mother. Mm-hmm. So the mother wants him to feel guilty so that she comes back and he stays with her. And this is where as parents on earth, we need to look at our love issues with children, I tell you, because even many of us with adult children, we have all of these heavy projections at them, causing our even adult children to feel bound up by their relationship with us. Yeah. And it's a big issue to face for us to deal with that and stop projecting at our children, no matter what their age, that they live for us. You know, this is a big emotion that a lot of parents have on earth and in the spirit world when they first pass, that the child has to be with me. How dare the child have a different life than what I have? And unfortunately, many of the children are in a better condition than the parents, and so they could easily have a better life, but unfortunately, because of these guilt-based bonds that the parents have imposed upon them, they don't embrace that better life until somebody comes along that actually takes them with them. But often they're frightened into not even going with those people by the parent.
So the celestials will sort of come to them and they pass into the spirit world, but because of the addiction with the parents, that's basically with the parents, and then they essentially can be manipulated by the parents to do whatever.
That's correct.
Yeah.
So pretty much as soon as a child passes, there is an attempt to break the addictive bonds between the parents and the child, so that the child can go to Summerland and actually start enjoying their life very rapidly. Unfortunately, because of the addictive bonds and some of them being so strong, it's not always possible to break those bonds. And in fact, there are many, many children, and I mean billions of children in the spirit world, who are yet to enter Summerland because of the addictive bonds they still have with their parents, and because of their parents' lack of progress in the spirit world or on earth. So if, say, a parent passes over into the spirit world and passes over into the hells of the spirit world, often it's because of the way they've treated their child that they pass into that location. And then when their child passes, particularly if the child has already passed or passes early, and the child feels drawn into that same location, and then the parent and the child have exactly the same relationship they had on earth, but the child could actually be living in Summerland. but unfortunately the parent's not going to allow them to while they have their current emotional condition.
That also counts for us as adults, doesn't it? Say our parents passed, but we're carrying this huge desire to still be loved by our parents. When we pass, we can actually be drawn to
will be drawn.
To our parents' location, even if it's actually lower than our soul condition, because we just want that addiction there.
Yeah, you see this often a lot also with partners, like married couples, where one half of the married couple is in a darker condition and another is in a brighter condition, and the one in the darker condition has so much demand upon the one in the brighter condition that the one in the brighter condition lives with the partner in the darker condition, not realising they could be living in a brighter condition. Right? And it's often the one that thinks they're better that actually is in the darker condition as well. So it's often the partner who thinks they're better than the other partner that's actually in the darker condition. And it just it gets all very muddy. And part of progression in the spirit world is coming to realise that we all have the right to be where we are. So we all have the right to actually live in a location that matches our condition, rather than living with people who are in a worse condition than ourselves.
A lot of people that a lot of people who might know this answer, but I don't.
Yep.
Surely when they pass over, is that it? Is it when they not grow like we do as humans?
No, they continue to grow, but their growth is a choice. So there are many children who have been there for 1,000 years but still have a child's body because they've yet to choose to grow their body. But generally, most children do grow into adults, and particularly this is the case with ones who pass who have miscarried or have been aborted. They grow into children and then grow and continue to grow after that into an adult. But it depends on their will as to how rapid that occurs. Yeah.
And the other question is, those poor children that were burnt up there in Queensland, are they okay? Like, are they in a good spot? Or?
Every child who ever passes over is given as much assistance as possibly can be given the different laws of attraction in place. As I said, the worst attraction for a child is the drawing nature of their parents' emotional condition. So if the parents are in a grieving condition where they're hanging on to their child, then it's highly likely the child will be around them quite frequently and also therefore not getting as much help as they could get.
Okay.
And this is where, as parents, it's very important for us to deal with our addictive emotions with our children, and also, if our children ever pass, to allow them the freedom of their growth that can occur in the spirit world when they do pass. Not many parents do that. One of the most difficult things to do as a helper is to break a bond between a parent on earth who's lost a child and the child's in the spirit world. Because the parent is usually in an addictive grief about the child, and therefore drawing the child constantly to him or her, and that prevents the child from actually being in Summerland and enjoying itself in Summerland. And it's one of the worst things you can do to your child, to actually have an addictive grief. An addictive grief is a grief that's based around anger and rage and resentment and so forth. So let's say our child passes and we're alive on earth. Many parents then go into a rage with God and a rage with, whoever caused the death or whatever. And these kind of addictive rages, which are nothing to do with feeling grief, really, they are holding on to grief.
Yeah, hanging on to,
They actually prevent the child from any growth and any semblance of happiness in the spirit world, unless a spirit can disconnect the child from that particular emotion. Remember I described to these children that they had these different cords coming out of their heart? And remember that he described the different colours. Some colours were different than others, and the golden colour was actually the greatest connection, and that was with his grandfather. But he couldn't get there because his grandfather was in a higher condition. But there was the white colour that was coming out of his heart, which is his love for his mother, but there was a grey tinge to it, which was his fear of his mother. Does that make sense? So every one of those chords coming out of their heart takes them somewhere, and depending on how demanding that chord is to where that child will go. And so the chord with his mother was still pulling him back to his mother, even though his mother was in the spirit world in a darker condition. And unfortunately, these chords also go back through the barrier between life on earth and the spirit world. So often a child who passes, like, children who pass from leukemia or some other childhood disease, they often have a very, very powerful pull back to the earth for a long period of time until the parents grieve their loss completely and in a non-addictive manner.
Most of it's just guilt. I should have done this and I could have done that.
Exactly. Yeah. A lot of it is the so-called grief that we feel on earth often is not grief at all, but rather it's guilt, shame, and other emotions. Where
about me.
Yeah, it's really about us, not about our loss of the person. And so unfortunately, a lot of the emotions projected at the child are quite damaging through that grieving process. And the better that we can connect just to the pure grief and release that, the faster the child has an opportunity to grow and change.
The worst part is society tells us it's okay unless we're here, unless we're doing this work. Society's saying this is all okay. Yeah,
and I suggest that it is okay to grieve, but you've got to be very careful what you're grieving about and be very honest about it. So if you're grieving the loss of somebody, are you really grieving their loss, or are you really, or in reality, are you just grieving selfishly, for selfish things?
Lessons on what grief means.
Yeah. And it's important for people on earth to understand the difference and the effect that it has on children in particular in the spirit world. Yeah.
Thank you.
Okay, so you've got you've got a parent on earth and a child that's passed.
Yep.
And say you've got a toxic grief, let's call it, about that child. That actually pulls them to an earthbound state around you.
Yes.
So, and they would be physically close to the mother, let's say it's a mother.
Yes, while the mother's awake. Yes. Yeah. And then when the mother's asleep, they'll probably still be bound to her in the sleep state.
So they're just caught in around the mother.
Yes.
And they can't actually get to Summerland.
And they won't actually spend much time in Summerland at all, either awake or asleep. If mother's awake or asleep, the child won't be spending much time in Summerland in any condition unless the child has learnt to separate. And what a large task of the spirits who are helping children is to help the children separate from the parent and those projections. Because remember, in that, there's a lot of things you could learn from that channeling actually with the children. Because remember, he described how he remembered where he's now living. And a lot of people don't realise that either. That actually in your sleep state, you have a place to live in your sleep state, and when you pass over, there is things that join everything together in your memory, and you start remembering that every time you went to sleep, you actually were there. There's a lot of very powerful lessons in that channeling, actually.
When such bad things happen to people like the Jewish people, is that partly law of attraction?
In what way are you suggesting?
Well, I guess I'm mindful of the Australian Aborigines and other Aboriginal people, and how the huge shift in their world happened when white people come to Australia. Is that are they purely victims there, or is that something, law of attraction, which is operating, or?
Well, yeah, when you say are they purely victims, the reality is there are oppressors on the earth, and then there are people that are oppressed. And the reason why oppressors focus on the oppressed is because the oppressed are gentler, they have a softer nature, they are easy to oppress.
Now, I wouldn't call that their law of attraction. I would call that the attraction of the oppressor. So in other words, the oppressor is seeking out a person they can oppress. And unfortunately, the way things are on earth, because love isn't the dominant quality, but rather fear, rage and anger are the dominant things, what happens is that unfortunately we get a group of people who are more gentle type of people and easy to oppress, are then selected and oppressed by the people who are the oppressors, who are in a much worse condition. And while there is a law of attraction going on, it's not something that the oppressed need to correct, it's something the oppressor needs to correct. Does that make sense? There are unloving emotions in the oppressor, not in the oppressed. And it's the oppressor who needs to deal with those emotions, not the oppressed.
But I think a little bit the way perhaps you're viewing the law of attraction is that it's about punishment, or do you know? There's an issue. The law of attraction is a loving law, and I think it's just trying to articulate what I sense. Then
can I just? I'm concerned about missing some of this discussion, and my battery's about to run out, so I'm going to just stop the recording. Okay, darling, fire away.
I think that sometimes the way we view God's laws tells us a lot about the feelings that we have about God that we might not recognise that we have. So when we view the law of attraction as for example, if Kenny came and kicked me, maybe in the old way we would have viewed it, we would have blamed Kenny. He did something bad to me and I'm allowed to get angry at him. Then we learn about the law of attraction and we sort of become, okay, I attracted that, so there's some injury inside of me, and we get a little bit intellectual about the whole thing, but we're still carrying these feelings that God is creating an unloving thing so that I get better, which is actually about a punishing God, isn't it? When I sort of have this feeling about the law of attraction that it's a loving way that God is guiding me to uncover what's in error inside of me. And so in some cases, the law of attraction brings me something that uncovers that in a way that I might find less confronting, and sometimes it feels confronting. But if we're carrying this feeling that really comes from our parents about God, which is that God is really trying to, you know, put the finger on me and show me, then we can feel like the law of attraction is about exacting some kind of punch or slap in order for me to see my injury, and that sort of says we feel God is punishing. And so when you sort of say, like, are they purely victims or do they have a law of attraction, it kind of says, do they have a fault? Because, you know, that's why they would attract something. I don't know if I'm explaining it well.
The reality is they do have a law of attraction.
Everybody has a law of attraction.
This is like a karma-based thing, really, aren't we? A negative thing, karma-based. And like in the old way of thinking, we'd be treated as a karma. Karma was a negative thing, as getting something back. So,
but the reality is quite different to that.
Yeah, it's not.
The reality is our soul, which is out of harmony with love on earth generally, and this applies to every single soul on earth. There is some disharmony with love inside of it. Now, some of the disharmony with love is not about rage and anger and oppression, but rather it's about fear and being oppressed.
And feeling like guilt.
And feeling guilt or shame or other emotions, right? So the reality is that we do need events that we attract to ourselves if we want to get closer to God, to deal with each one of those groups of emotions. However, we can't then say that the person who's oppressing us is actually doing a loving thing. Because the reality is they're choosing an unloving action that is actually damaging their own soul if they continue in it. So while the law of attraction their unloving action may benefit me, so at the moment, like, there's millions of spirits attacking myself and Mary quite frequently. their attacks are benefiting myself and Mary because we're going through different emotions that we do need to clear as a result of them. But their action is not benefiting their own soul because their own soul is getting darker. So, and also, you are not deserving of the attack. You're attracting it because there's an injury inside, but also we might attract someone loving us really completely, and that might trigger the injury inside of us, and both things are a law of attraction. So if Kenny came and kicked me, his action would still be unloving. And even though there might be an injury inside of myself that attracted that if I really want to grow towards God, then I will own and feel and release. Rather than trying to attack Kenny back. It's still, the act is still an unloving act, and it also doesn't mean I deserved his kick just because I have the injury inside of me. The unfortunate thing about the earth is that there are very few people in a loving enough condition to trigger our emotions in a loving way in order for us to heal. Because Kenny could come and give me a hug and trigger exactly the same emotion. It's just that at the moment, the law of attraction is operating with the soul condition that's present.
So when you passed in the first century, you were at 1, so you didn't have any injuries to feel.
No.
It was still your law of attraction.
It was still my law of attraction in the sense that any time you're in a condition of truth and in a condition of love, if you're surrounded by people who are in a condition of untruth and unloving, then what happens is they often feel jealousy, rage and other emotions, which then intensify when they're in your company. Because that's the law of attraction. It is the law of attraction at work. Rather than saying it's his law of attraction, it is the law of attraction at work. So the reality is my presence in front of them automatically created them feeling rageful with me, even though I did not deserve that rage. Right? And that, in fact, is why their souls degraded in the experience of their rage. Even though I did not deserve their rage, the reality is having somebody who was in a pure state in front of them was going to trigger their rage if they denied their deeper emotions of grief and sadness and shame and those other emotions, which they did do. They had a choice to feel their shame, their grief and their fear when they were in my presence, and if they did that, then they would never have got into a rage with me. They would never have degraded their own soul conditions through their attack of me. And the reality is I would never then have experienced the death that I experienced. But the likelihood of that occurring in the environment was pretty low. But can you see the love inherent in that? The loving law of attraction attracts the state of truth, the confrontation between the state of truth and error. But because you're working with the free will of everyone involved, it is the most loving thing that could happen because it gives that person an opportunity to face the error, which is what all of us have the opportunity to do if we're consciously aware of the law of attraction. But because there's the law of free will involved, God can't guarantee that they're going to actually face the error and grow in love, and so the law of free will causes that. So their choice, their free will choice, to either deny the emotion or to allow the emotion. If they allow the emotion, there's a high likelihood they will not harm you. If they deny their emotion, there's a high likelihood they will. And that's not your fault. It's just the law of attraction in work when a person who's pure is standing in front of a person who's got shame in them and got fear in them and got sadness in them that they don't want to feel. And so the loving thing is that they have that opportunity is created. If they take it, they grow in love. If they don't, then there's a penalty upon their soul and they attract something that's going to help them deal with that error.
And like you said a moment ago, and I think we tend to view it as my or your law of attraction rather than whenever anybody says my law of attraction, I go, I'm sorry, God's law of attraction, not yours. It's in operation on all of us. The reality is that what it works upon is your soul condition. So you'd be better off saying my soul condition created a certain event, because the law of attraction is in place all the time, and it's my soul condition that created the event, not your law of attraction that created the event. There's no such thing as your law of attraction, actually. There is God's law of attraction,
that operates upon your soul as well as upon the souls of every single being in the universe. And that law is constant and continuous and also the same for each of us. In other words, if we had exactly the same emotion at exactly the same time with exactly the same situation, the law would act in exactly the same way. Does that make sense to everybody? So we need to understand the law of attraction as being God's law of attraction operating upon our soul condition. And unfortunately on the earth there are not too many loving things acting upon our soul condition in terms of our experience, earth-to-earth experiences, because unfortunately there are not very many people on earth who are in a very strong condition of love that could actually act upon our law of attraction to give us what we need to grow. There are huge numbers of spirits around us who are trying to love us through the law of attraction and helping us through our law of attraction through the law of attraction to grow. But unfortunately, we often don't feel them very strongly because we're more in tune with all of the negative people around us generally than we are to the positive people around us. And that's a condition, again, that's on earth.
AJ, I feel like I feel my law of attraction as
Whose law of attraction?
God's law of attraction.
Yes. So your soul condition.
Yeah.
You feel your soul is attracting.
I feel it as as a shame and an embarrassment.
Yep.
And I wondered why that would be. Is that because my mum taught me that I was to care what other people thought, or is there more to it than that? Or
there's quite a lot to it, obviously, and sometimes it can be your mother's shame and embarrassment. Sometimes it can be that she caused you to feel shame and embarrassment inside of yourself when you were a child. The key, and what I see a lot of people still doing a lot, is trying to analyse emotion through their intellect. Can I suggest to you that it's totally impossible to analyse emotion through intellect? Give it up as an option. Instead, the more powerful thing to do is to just feel the emotion. So, if the emotion is shame that is triggered in a certain event caused by God's law of attraction and your soul attracting that through that law, then my suggestion to you is to just feel the emotion. Just go into that emotion, not trying to work out what it was about. Because the reality is, it's only usually after you've felt the emotion that you'll know what it was about. And even then, sometimes that's unlikely because a lot of times it's stuff that happened in our childhood before we were 2 years of age when you didn't even have an intellectual knowledge of what it would be about and you just have the feeling and you don't even know why. And the problem with intellectualising the process is that you cause yourself to go, oh, was it this or oh, was it that? No, was it this? And the reality is, while you're doing that, and the primary reason why you're doing that is because you want to avoid the emotion. So you're not actually helping yourself get to the emotion, you're helping yourself avoid the emotion by intellectually analysing what the emotion is about. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
So when you feel shame. Don't go, oh, this is about, I think it's about my mother and maybe it's about this. This is all the intellect trying to make you feel safe. So instead of you going like, I don't feel safe feeling it either. Like I feel shame and I don't feel safe. And feel the fear that you have involved in feeling the shame.
That's what I came to realise, that every time I wanted to understand or analyse my emotion, it was a product of the fear that I wasn't acknowledging about that.
So, and I see people analysing, discussing, and trying to work out, and every time they don't want to feel it. It's far faster. Just like you remember with the child.
Yeah, just was like in and out.
In and out. There was this emotion come up, and then happiness come, and then emotion come, and then happiness. Now, the average person on earth going between that in a normal day, what is it called? We give it names. We give those kind of things where you go through sadness and then you're happy again and then you're sad and then you're ashamed and then you have...
Mood swings.
We call that mood swings, yeah. And we call it, we give them names, right? And basically what we're saying is none of those things are any good. We can't do that. But the reality is that the soul has the ability to feel its emotion there and then every single time. And if you allow it to do it, the mood swings become less, if we can call them mood swings. So you might be angry, sad, shameful, all these different emotions all the way through the day. But if you feel each one of them rather than intellectually analysing each one of them, the next day you'll have less of them. But if
you try to intellectually analyse them and go, what's this about? What you're doing now is you're shutting down this natural process that occurs for a child, really naturally. It doesn't occur for us as adults naturally, but as a child it does. And then what happens is we finish up manipulating our emotional state, which is really carrying a facade. And in the end, carrying a facade is not going to help you be real, and it's not going to help you get to every emotion. And on top of that, you end up finishing up trying to control the process of release, when the process of release is subsequent to you living your life. So what we see a lot of people doing is they go, okay, I need to feel my emotions. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to create a life where I'm feeling my emotions. And so then they go into analysing your emotions, feeling it. Now, my suggestion is stop doing that. Live your life and just let every emotion that gets triggered come up whenever it happens. So when I say live your life, I mean now embrace your passions and desires. And then when you feel like, oh, I didn't get my passion and desire fulfilled, how did you feel? Maybe angry. So you go and feel angry about it. And then maybe you feel like, oh, I'm never going to get what I want. There's a lot of grief in that. So you go and have a cry about that. But still go and embrace your passion and desire. Don't give it up. Live the life, live your life. And let the emotions come up naturally, just like as you saw that child doing. He flew up into the tree, got to the tree, we talked a bit about that, very happy about that, and then all of a sudden some grief come up.
It was a little bit surprising for me to channel it too, because I was like, oh, it was happening, and I was like, wow, it's actually nice to channel a child, because like, get over it.
You see how a little child acts most of the time. You see little children do this all the time. They injure themselves something horrifically sometimes, and then 10 minutes later they're out playing again. Why? Because they allowed themselves to fully experience the emotion at the time. That's how they got over it so fast. So if we can learn to do the same as adults, and I'm not saying that we take those emotions out on other people. I'm saying that we need to own them and feel them ourselves, and we don't, do the facade thing, which is just having a big cry because it looks like I'm doing good then because I had a cry. But this is what a lot of people judge on the divine love path. They say, oh, if I'm having a cry, it means I'm progressing. The reality is, like I've seen like most people that I've seen in that place are having a cry for the sake of a heap of spirits around them, and they're not doing any of their own emotional work at all, and they're not actually progressing. So the reality, if we can embrace our life, embrace our passions, embrace our desires, and then just have an internal dedication that any emotion that comes up, I'm going to feel right there and then if I can. And feel it and release it. The more I can release it, then the next time that same situation comes up, which is unlikely because the law of attraction works upon our soul and our soul's changed. But if it does come up, then we can just go into it a lot more rapidly, and it'll be over a lot more quickly and so forth, if we just let that process happen.
If you have a dream about a place that you live in the spirit world, is that likely that that's the sort of place you live?
Well, there's two possibilities, Cecily. One is it's the place that you hope you live. The other is it's the place that you live. And you see a lot of
I didn't know about this path when I had this dream.
Yeah. And a lot of times we hope we live in certain places that we don't live, or that we've visited certain places that we allow ourselves to remember. In the spirit world, spirits can take us temporarily to a place that is above our condition, and they can show us that place. We can't live there permanently because of our condition. So there are literally many things we might remember. Some of them might be other people's places that we think are our own, and some of them might be our own, and some of them might be where we hope we live, but we're because of those emotions. And the key is to allow ourselves to consider that there is a number of possibilities with any one of our dreams as to what the truth is, and sooner or later those possibilities will be revealed into truth if we allow ourselves to pray about them and acknowledge them.
If it's very graphically about something that pertains to yourself, like a story, because I have a feeling for how I understood it at the time, and now I'm being intellectual about it. I guess I just don't really know what to say. I sort of have a feeling about it, but...
Can you feel the feeling in you, though, that there's a doubt now inside of you as to whether your original assessment of the dream is now actually accurate, and instead of feeling the doubt and actually working through it emotionally, you're now asking me for the solution? Can you see that? So really you're asking me because you want to avoid an emotion, not because you want to actually have the emotion. So the emotion is an emotion of doubt that then feels like unsafe and insecure. Allow yourself to feel it. Doubt is an emotion. Allow yourself to feel it. Allow yourself to sort it out in your own self, and rather than asking other people questions that help you feel safe, you are better off feeling unsafe and feeling the emotion that it's triggered than you are trying to feel safe, if that makes sense. What is the time, by the way? Yeah. We said to the guys that we'd finish about 9:30 tonight, so we probably want to finish now. It's 10 past 10, and if we go too late, then myself and Mary often are pretty tired for the next day of activity, which is going to be fairly intense tomorrow for us. We'd like to thank you for your time tonight. Hopefully you've enjoyed some of tonight.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Some of you may be interested in developing mediumship inside of yourselves, and Pete and Eloise have got a group running on. When's the next meeting? This Thursday coming, and it's Thursday every fortnight after that, isn't it? So those of you who would like to come along and help go, develop. But when you come along to these meetings, come with a desire to do it yourself, rather than watch other people do it. Do you understand? Come along with a desire to learn for yourself and experience it for yourself. And if you can do that, many of you will actually be able to talk to your spirit friends quite soon, and talk to other people quite soon as well. And if you go through that by having a desire of it for yourself.
Yeah. Thanks for being a welcoming audience. This is the first time I've channeled in front of anyone, really. So, other than a couple of close friends. So, yeah, you were very